The skinny. A golden envelope changed everything. One clear Michigan morning, Rich Abs read aloud that King Solomon Royal of Kemet had opened a new 1 to 12 academy and wanted the Abs family to come, especially Rich, to build the country's premier science course. They packed, said nervous goodbyes, and flew first class out of Detroit at 11:15 a.m. Landed near Cairo at 6:40 a.m. Local time after vegan courses and wide-eyed wonder. Royal staff met them in black Rolls Royces, swept them past the pyramids to the palace, and introduced them to the queen and the royal children, Mar, Kalinda, and Nadessa, who would soon feel like siblings. They settled into a rhythm anchored by a family prayer movement at 6 a.m., noon, 3, 6, and 9. Heels and toes, squats, push-ups, jumping jacks, paired with a long litany of thanks. Exploring the city, the kids learn money and manners by buying a mango for 5 Egyptian pounds with a 10 and getting 5 in change. 4 movie tickets at 40 Egyptian pounds each, paid with the 240 back. Veggie burgers and waters totaling 540 Egyptian pounds, paid with 3 260 back. Rich found a local gym, 150 Egyptian pound day pass, changed from a 200, and a smoothie bar. 110 Egyptian pounds, paid 150, got 50 back. Walking with Ocean, their mischievous Rottweiler. A weekend geometry tour of the pyramids, braided prayer breaks into the desert light. By Monday, school began. Inside sunlit classrooms and courtyards, Rich adapted his adult course, Black's Anatomy, for children. Water, light, magnetism, and a quantum-informed body instead of just levers and pumps. He added nutrition and physical education, consulting pigment-rich foods, hourly water, movement as prayer in motion. Third period, arc stacked like stones, photosynthesis, and Krebs as a star plant, people friendship, with hydrogen as the traveler. Chlorophyll, pigment as translators of light into information, physics versus quantum, stuff versus the energy inside stuff, membranes and teamwork from one cell to many. Nuclear DNA as the nucleus library, and a QRST masterclass. Q, ready. R, push. S, settle. T, tune. For the heart's wave. A big 5th grader named Rashad asked if his cells were different. Rich reframed weight as stored energy and gave him simple promises. Weeks later, Rashad looked 5 to 10 pounds lighter and carried himself like a captain. Then the ceiling of the gym blew apart and masked men dropped like shadows. Coach Malik fought like a storm, throws, redirection, broomstick pins, until a taser folded him and an all-white van took him. The palace reeled. Rumors crowded the gates. Quietly, a youth circle formed. Christopher, Mar, joined by Osiris and Tahuti, an 11th grade tech whiz. A 9th grader had memorized the plate number. In the back row of an old movie theater, the kids powered up their long-range link to ARC, from hidden go bags. They traced the van to an abandoned temple, modeled Malik's electromagnetic breath from his records, and used satellite scans to find a 0.21 hertz signature below the stone. An anonymous dossier hit Captain Rahotep's inbox. He raided and rescued Malik at dawn. Publicly, Rahotep was hailed. Privately, the kids stayed invisible. Threads deepened. Mar found a cracked leather volume in the stacks. Ancient Beni Hassan wrestling sequences interleaved with timing and ritual. And a sigil, a double crescent with a thin bar. Falcon overheard late-night balcony words. Codex, Christ, Melanin. Chanel, the most observant 5th grader in the room, noticed a fresh chef's collar slip at lunch and the same sigil tattooed on his neck. Research led the kids to Pharmacia, a $1 trillion conglomerate heavy in heart medications with a nutrition services arm supplying institutional kitchens. They went front door at dinner photos, registries, clean receipts. The palace moved quietly. Staff sweeps, vendor audits, no theatrics. Meanwhile, Rich and Baba Malik saturated the school with Christ, the heart's clean wave as the center of human energy, a foundation for longevity, clarity, and even that eerie in-tune intuition everyone swears is coincidence. A smear then claimed the king had hidden kidnapping details for money. Protests flared. Half the school stayed home. The boys slipped to the temple, found disturbed sand, the scratched sigil, and a faint RF tick that resolved into codex, and returned front door again, setting a house rule: no more solo missions, table first. The plan turned outward: teach openly, parent nights, and broadcast lessons. Lock the house. Rahotep to trace kitchens and contracts. Publish only what could be lawfully shown and train with discipline. Dangerous pages in the book would sleep. In the gym, Malik reframed martial arts as energy management for health and lifespan, tying footwork to RST. Even teachers outside the circle were sketching heartbeat waves over coffee. The second grab came disguised as a police detour. Tires blew, hoods dropped, a white van sped off, unaware that drones, the children's silent phones, royal feeds, and ARC were already inside the circuitry. Rahotep herded the van through the city's veins. ARC leaned on telematics and locks. Quiet, trucks boxed it in. Nets kissed the bumpers. No sirens, no show. The back door slid. The kids came out. The kidnappers rolled onto a palace cell. The next morning, school felt normal. Normal-ish. And there was no bulletin. That evening, the long cedar table filled. King, Queen, Rich, Rahotep, Baba Malik, Tahuti, and all the children, Abs and Real, by blood and by oath. They saw the circle. Someone wanted Christ buried before it became a curriculum for the masses. The family's answer was simple and public. Teach in the open so fear can't grow. Secure supply lines so nothing hides in aprons or invoices. Publish receipts, not rumors. Train for longevity, not spectacle. They prayed under the stars, heels, toes, squats, push-ups, jacks. Thanks for waves that reset. Somewhere across the city, a polished boardroom logo gleamed like a double crescent on glass. Pharmakia had no idea what was coming. Fade. The math. Here's what a child can pick up from this story, both hard science and real world skills, just by following the Abs Real family's adventures. Core science. Kid friendly but real. Life science and biochemistry. Photosynthesis as letters from the sun, hydrogen as a traveler, mitochondria and Krebs as the body's reply, pigments, chlorophyll turning light into information, food webs and energy flow, human biology, physiology, the heart's Christ wave, Q ready, R push, S settle, T tune, circulation path, body as conductor, wave charge, magnetism, habits that help the wave water, pigment, rich food, movement, cell biology, genetics, membranes as self-assembled tiny houses, teamwork of cells, tissues, organs, nuclear DNA as a library, genes as recipes, ACGT, mitochondria, DNA cameo, chemistry of matter, particle model, solid, liquid, gas, conservation of matter in mixing, heating, cooling, physical versus chemical changes, physics and intro to quantum science, stuff, forces, motion versus energy in stuff, charge, light, probabilities, how tiny energy steps underpin the big effects kids can see, Earth and space science, Earth's systems, hydro, geo, atmo, bio, water cycle, rock cycle, day, night, moon phases, seasons, tilt, biomechanics of movement, why breath, posture, cadence, and redirection, Benny Hassan Jiu-Jitsu roots, matter, energy management for health and longevity, engineering, data and inquiry, scientific method habits, ask, plan, test, record, explain, with gestures, quick demos, and notebook exit jots, modeling and measurement, pulse counts before, after calm breathing, simple mass checks to see conservation, mapping routes and timelines, design thinking, small water filter build, rain gauge logging, community help mini projects, data and OSINT basics, plates, registries, receipts, not rumors, satellite thermal views at a story level, chain of evidence thinking, health, PE, and nutrition, hydration cadence, water each hour and why it helps signaling, pigment plate, greens, purples, reds, and how pigments carry useful signals, micro movement breaks, heels, toes, squats, push-ups, jacks to keep the current flowing, Weight as stored energy, Rashad. No shaming, practical habit loops. Math and practical literacy, money math and exchange rates, USD to EGP conversions, making change, reading prices, tip-like mental arithmetic, time math, flights, time zones, bell schedules, breath counts, maps and navigation, routes, detours, landmarks, scanning for anomalies, history, culture, and language, ancient tech and martial arts, Benny Hassan sequences as proto-manuals, holds, throws, counters, architecture and geometry vibe, pyramids, angles, solstice talk, greetings and multilingual awareness, English, French, Arabic, classroom intros, cultural etiquette at tables and in lines, digital citizenship and ethics, media literacy, spotting smears versus proof, why transparency with parents matters, safety protocols, front door rule, no solo missions, lawful disclosure, AI literacy, what an assistant like art can do, and the guardrails adults put on, social emotional learning, teamwork and oath, shared purpose, telling the truth at the table, self-regulation, using Christ breathing to steady emotions, handling rivalry and teasing with poise, courage with care, noticing details, Chanel's chef tattoo, reporting without drama. Morning light poured gently through the Michigan windows, soft and golden, with the kind of crisp air that carried the first hints of autumn. Outside, the maples were touched with orange at their edges, and the grass shimmered faintly with dew. Inside, the Abbs household steered awake. Rich Abbs moving with steady calm, his children bustling with morning energy. 16-year-old Christopher took the lead in the kitchen, blending up his signature Blue Magic smoothie, a swirl of blueberries, sea moss, and almond milk, while stirring oatmeal on the stove. The smell of cinnamon and warm oats filled the house as Falcon and Osiris drifted in, still playful with their morning yawns, while Amor and Chanel, the 10-year-old twins, tugged each other toward the table. They gathered as a family, bowls steaming, smoothie glasses glowing purple in the sunlight. Just as they settled, Falcon's voice broke the rhythm. "Dad, we got something strange in the mail. A golden envelope." Her eyes sparkled as she slid it across the table. Rich leaned back in his chair, raising an eyebrow. "Bring it here." He broke the wax seal, the room quieting as if the air itself leaned in. His voice grew deep as he read aloud. "By decree of King Solomon of Kemet, Africa, a new school has been founded for the children of the world, grades 1 through 12. The Abbs family is invited not only to attend, but to help shape its destiny. Rich Abbs, you are requested to guide and teach the premier science course of our nation." The children gasped, eyes wide, oatmeal spoons forgotten mid-air. The room filled with an electric silence, the sense that something far larger than their Michigan morning had just stepped through the door. Rich looked at each of them in turn, a smile tugging at his lips. "It seems," he said slowly, "the temple's work is being called back home." Christopher was the first to speak, spoon tapping lightly against his bowl. "Dad, this isn't just some exchange program. This is Kemet, Africa, the place where all your lectures start. the land of the pyramids, of builders, of numbers. If King Solomon himself is asking you to teach, he paused, shaking his head in disbelief. That's history calling. Osiris's eyes widened, and his 13-year-old curiosity bubbled out. Does that mean we get to live there? Like in the deserts with the temples? Or will we be in a city with other kids? I want to see the Nile. I want to touch the sand where the first scientist walked. He could hardly sit still, his oatmeal forgotten, elbows braced on the table as if leaning towards destiny. Falcon, who had first delivered the envelope, spoke more carefully. I think it's amazing, but it feels so big. Leaving Michigan, leaving our home, our friends, starting all over. What if the school is too different? Her voice wavered between excitement and worry, her twin nature balancing awe with hesitation. Amor and Chanel, the youngest, clapped their hands together in unison. Africa, Africa. We want to see lions. We want to wear white dresses and eat mangoes off the tree. Their laughter lightened the air, their innocence reminding everyone that this was also an adventure, not just a challenge. Rich set the letter down gently, his fingers pressing against the golden seal as if absorbing the weight of it. His gaze swept over his children, each face reflecting a different facet of the moment. This is no ordinary invitation. King Solomon is not just offering us a school. He is offering us a place in the rebirth of knowledge, a chance to stand in the very current where science and spirit first walked hand in hand. The kitchen grew silent again, but this time it was charged, not with fear, but with possibility. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint rustle of the trees outside, even if the steam curling from their bowls seemed to pause, waiting for the family's answer. Christopher leaned forward, his voice steady. If you're teaching there, Dad, then we have to go. We'll carry the codex with us. We'll bring what we know and learn what we don't. Rich smiled then, the lines of decision firming around his mouth. Then it settled. We'll prepare. Michigan was our beginning. Kemet will be our next chapter. The house in Michigan became a whirlwind of boxes and folded clothes, of books carefully stacked in kitchen jars sealed tight. Rich oversaw the work with his steady presence, while Christopher made lists and checked them twice. Osiris wandered the yard with Falcon, saying quiet goodbyes to the trees, the basketball hoop, and the cool blue sky of their hometown. Amor and Chanel filled their suitcases with drawings and little treasures, twin giggles echoing through the halls. On departure day, the weather was clear, late morning sun spilling across the driveway as they locked the front door for the last time. It was September in Michigan, cool, but not yet biting. The air fragrant with the first turn of autumn leaves. Their flight from Detroit Metropolitan Airport lifted at 11:15 a.m. local time, the jet engines roaring into the high blue. The family pressed against the windows, watching their familiar landscape shrink into quilted farmland before a cloud cover carried them eastward across the Atlantic. Flying first class was a new kind of ritual. Each of them was greeted with warm towels and silver cutlery, their meals arriving in courses. Lunch began with a fresh salad of arugula, beets, and toasted walnuts, dressed with lemon and olive oil. For the main dish, they were served roasted eggplant with tahini, quinoa pilaf, and steamed asparagus. The flavor is fragrant yet clean. Dessert was a coconut milk panna cotta topped with blueberries, smooth and cooling on the tongue. Hours later, as the plane crossed the ocean, a second meal arrived. Miso glazed tofu with soba noodles, edamame and bok choy, paired with a small bowl of tropical fruit, mango, pineapple, and dragon fruit glowing like jewels under the cabin lights. As the sun fell behind them, the cabin grew quiet, and by the time dawn broke over Africa, they were descending toward Cairo. The wheels touched down at 6:40 a.m. local time. The sky painted with pink and gold streaks of sunrise. Warm air flooded into the jet bridge, a sharp contrast to Michigan's cool morning, carrying with it the scent of sand and distant river water. On the tarmac, a line of black Rolls Royces waited, polished to a mirror sheen. The royal staff, dressed in crisp white linen, bowed as the family descended. Doors opened with practiced grace, and soon they were riding through Cairo's wide streets. The city gave way to desert road, and suddenly the pyramids rose into view. Silent, immovable giants in the morning haze. The children pressed to the windows, their voices hushed with awe. The convoy swept through the ornate gates and into the grounds of the king's mansion. Palm trees swayed gently in the warm breeze, and fountains glittered in the courtyard. At the steps of the palace stood King Solomon, tall and radiant, in a flowing white robe embroidered with gold. At his side was his wife, regal and composed, and behind them 3 children. Mar, 16, his eyes sharp and welcoming. Kalinda, 13, her braids catching the light. And Nadessa, 10, smiling wide with curiosity. As the Abbs family stepped from the Rolls Royce, the king opened his arms wide. "Welcome home," he said, his voice carrying like a current across the courtyard. The golden sun dipped lower as evening wrapped the king's mansion in amber light. The Abbs family had been shown to their quarters. Vast, airy rooms with carved cedar doors and linen curtains that danced in the warm desert breeze. After time to wash away the long journey, they were guided by attendants through halls lined with hieroglyphic murals and crystal lamps, until the great dining chamber opened before them. The table stretched long and wide, its surface of polished alabaster gleaming under chandeliers shaped like lotus blossoms. Servants moved with quiet grace, setting down golden dishes steaming with aromas both familiar and new. The family took their seats opposite the king, his wife beside him, and Mar, Kalinda, and Nadessa seated in a row, their eyes bright with curiosity about these new American guests. Dinner began with bowls of lentil and chickpea stew seasoned with cumin and coriander, accompanied by warm flatbread and olive tempanade. For the main course, platters were unveiled bearing stuffed peppers with quinoa, raisins, pine nuts, alongside grilled okra with pomegranate glaze. Fresh dates, figs, and mango slices were laid out like jewels for dessert, their sweetness punctuated by cups of mint tea poured into delicate glass. Every dish was vegan, rich, colorful, and honoring both tradition and hospitality. The children quickly bridged shyness with curiosity. Mar leaned toward Christopher, asking about life in Michigan and his favorite sciences, while Osiris and Falcon traded questions with Kalinda about music and games. Nadessa giggled with Amor and Chanel over the fruits trying to teach them a few words in Arabic as they swapped bites of mango. Then King Solomon rose, his robe flowing like a tide, and the room quieted instantly. His voice was low, deliberate, carrying authority, yet touched with warmth. "Rich Abs," he said, "you are not here by chance. The pyramids outside these walls were not monuments to the dead, but schools of light and energy. Our children, mine and yours, must not grow under systems that teach them to forget who they are. That is why I have built this school, a place where science is not stripped from spirit, where current and knowledge flow as one." He lifted a hand, palm open. "You have been chosen to weave the first thread of this tapestry, to teach our students the living laws of energy, the true science of the body, the earth, and the heavens, to build a course that will anchor a generation." The air around the table seemed to hum as though the pyramids themselves were listening through the walls. Rich's eyes locked with the king's, the silence deep, electric. Then Rich placed his hand over his heart and nodded slowly. "If the children are ready," he said, "then I will build the course. Together we will show the temple of the body is not lost. It lives within them." The king smiled, his wife's eyes shining in agreement. Around the table, the children looked from face to face, a new bond forming, a new chapter dawning. The weekend came quick. By Saturday morning, the Abs family awoke in the king's guest wing to the sound of pigeons cooing in the courtyard and sunlight spilling through wide arched windows. The air was dry, golden, but not much hotter than Michigan's late summer. Palm fronds swayed where maples once had, and instead of deer in the yard, lizards dotted across warm stone walls. Even with the pyramids looming in the horizon, there was something familiar, a rhythm of quiet neighborhoods, families out walking, bicycles rattling over cobbled streets. The children's adventure. After breakfast, Christopher suggested they explore on their own. Falcon, Osiris, Amor, and Chanel quickly agreed. They had heard about a small plaza with a movie theater and a cafe that served plant-based burgers. The royal driver gave them basic directions, but excited chatter drowned out half the instructions. They reached the plaza on foot, weaving through streets lined with fruit stalls and spice shops. The smell of cumin and roasted sesame filled the air. A vendor shouted, "Fresh mangoes! 5 Egyptian pounds each!" Osiris fished a 10-pound note from his pocket, green with the Mosque of Muhammad Ali printed on it, and handed it over. The vendor smiled, gave him 1 mango and 5 Egyptian pounds in coins. As change, each coin clinking bright and new. The children laughed, sharing bites as they walked. Soon they realized they had strayed from the plaza. Falcon frowned at a street sign written in Arabic script. "Was it left or right at the fountain?" she muttered. They circled 2 blocks before stopping a young man carrying groceries. Christopher asked, "Excuse me, do you know where the movie theater is?" The man smiled, pointed back 2 streets, and said slowly in English, "Go right, then left. You see the posters." At the theater, the children bought tickets for an afternoon animated film. The cashier wore a neat vest and said tickets are 40 pounds each. Christopher pulled a 200-pound note from his wallet, pale orange with the Sphinx printed on one side. She gave him 4 tickets and 40 pounds in change, 2 20-pound notes. At the cafe next door, they ordered veggie burgers with fries. The menu showed veggie burger with fries, 120 Egyptian pounds each. Bottled water, 15 Egyptian pounds each. Falcon ordered 4 burgers and 4 waters. The total came to 540 Egyptian pounds. She paid with 3 200-pound notes, 600 Egyptian pounds total. The cashier handed back 60 pounds, 3 20-pound notes, as change, smiling warmly. The burgers came wrapped in paper printed with hieroglyph motifs. They sat outside eating and laughing. The food surprisingly close in taste to what they knew from home. Rich's morning. Meanwhile, Rich had decided to find a local gym. He clipped the leash onto Ocean, his black Rottweiler, who until now had been mostly ignored by the palace staff. But the truth was, she had been giving them chaos, slipping into kitchens, stealing bread, startling maids by leaping onto couches she wasn't supposed to. The butlers whispered about the American dog under their breath, but Rich only grinned. He walked through the hot streets, Ocean trotting proudly beside him. The gym was a modest brick building with open windows and the sound of clanking iron drifting out. A sign above the door read, "Day Pass, 150 Egyptian pounds." Inside, the trainer at the desk said, "Welcome." "1 day pass," Rich nodded, handed over a 200-pound note and received 50 pounds back, 2 20-pounds and 1 10-pound. Ocean settled onto the cool tile floor near the door while Rich ran through a circuit of squats, presses, and pull-ups. Afterward, sweat still clinging to his shirt, he stepped into a smoothie bar next door. The menu: green detox smoothie, spinach, apple, lemon, 90 Egyptian pounds. Mango protein shake, 110 Egyptian pounds. Dates and almond shake, 100 Egyptian pounds. Rich ordered the mango protein shake. He gave the cashier a 100-pound note and a 50-pound note, 150 Egyptian pounds total. The cashier returned a crisp 50-pound note as change. The smoothie was thick, golden, sweet with mango and faintly nutty. The encounter. But when he turned to leave, he realized he had stepped onto a different street than the one he entered from. The buildings looked familiar, yet not quite right. He paused, Ocean tugging gently at the leash. Then a woman approached, carrying a basket of herbs. Her face stopped him cold. Something in her eyes, the softness of her mouth, reminded him instantly of Kai, his wife who had passed. For a long moment, he forgot where he was, as though time itself had folded. "You are lost?" she asked in careful English. Rich cleared his throat, steadying himself. "Yes, I'm looking for the king's palace. The Rolls Royce brought us, but I walked here on foot." She pointed down the road, straight 2 blocks, then left at the fountain with the falcon statue. "That road leads back to the gates." He nodded, gratitude heavy in his chest. "Thank you." He wanted to say more, to explain why her presence had struck him, but the words stayed locked. He pulled Ocean close, adjusted his grip on the smoothie cup, and started toward the fountain. Yet as he walked, he felt Kai's spirit whisper in the woman's voice, as though the land itself answered his grief. Sunday dawned with a golden light spread across the desert horizon. The pyramids stood like shadowed guardians against the rising sun, and the Abs family stirred awake in the palace guest rooms. At 6 a.m. sharp, Rich gathered Christopher, Osiris, Falcon, Amor, and Chanel in the courtyard. Even Ocean padded out and sat watching curiously. They formed a small circle, barefoot pressed to the stone tiles, and began their prayer ritual. Heel raises, toe raises, squats, push-ups, and jumping jacks. Breath weaving movement into rhythm. The practice lasted about 4.5 minutes, their voices uniting at the close of each movement in prayer. We give thanks and praise to the Most High God for the divine spark that set ourselves into perpetual motion. Their words rolled through the courtyard like a tide, echoing softly against the carved pillars. Every line, from the magnetism of the Most Holy to the ferry boats of light to the stable fleet of the Jed pillar, bound them closer to the sacred current of the day. Journey to the pyramids. By mid-morning, King Solomon's convoy of Rolls Royces was waiting. The king himself greeted them with a staff of polished ebony in his hand, his robe a cascade of white and gold. Today, he said, you will see geometry not as math in a book, but as life carved in stone. The cars rode through Cairo and out into the desert, past sandstone villages and camel caravans. The air shimmered with heat, but the breeze kept it from becoming harsh. The children pressed their faces to the glass as the pyramids drew near, their scale overwhelming, dwarfing all else around them. At 12 noon, when the sun blazed directly overhead, Rich asked the convoy to stop at a shaded outpost. The family stepped out onto warm sand and began their second prayer. The royal guards and even King Solomon's attendants watched curiously as the Abs family moved together, lifting heels, squatting, pressing palms to the earth, finishing with breath rising in unison. We give thanks for smooth sailing around the heart, through the corona crown, joining the vortex in the right atrium. The king smiled knowingly, nodding to his wife. They do not travel as guests. They travel as priests. The geometric lessons. Under the king's guidance, they entered the Great Pyramid's base. Torches lit the inner passages, and the sound of their footsteps echoed against stone. Solomon pointed to an angled shaft, 36 degrees, the same angle the sun crosses the horizon at solstice. Geometry is not lines. It is breath and timing. Christopher whispered to Osiris, "It feels alive, like the walls are pulsing with math." Osiris nodded, wide-eyed. By 3 p.m., the family stopped in the shade of the pyramid's northern face. Sweat glistened on their foreheads, but their rhythm did not break. Again, they knelt, squatted, rose, and pushed, voices carrying their prayer through the hot air. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. Tourists passing in the distance stopped and watched, sensing something unusual, though they could not grasp its full meaning. Evening in return. The convoy wound back to the palace as the sun slid lower. At 6 p.m., by a grove of date palms, Rich asked again for a pause. Ocean barked once, then sat quietly as the family performed their fourth prayer. The golden light made their silhouettes glow as they chanted about the vineyards and ferry boats of light. By the time they reached the palace gates, the desert was cooling. Dinner awaited, but before they could sit, the final ritual of the day came at 9 p.m. in the palace courtyard. This time, King Solomon and his wife joined quietly, standing at a respectful distance, hands over their hearts, listening as the Abbs family gave thanks for breath, light, magnetism, and the currents of light. The stars wheeled high overhead, the pyramids looming in the dark distance, and it was clear to all this was not just a family adjusting to Kemet. This was a current being woven into the land itself. Monday morning unfolded with a sense of ceremony. The new school grounds, a freshly built complex not far from the pyramids, gleamed with sandstone walls, open air courtyards, and classrooms designed to let sunlight in from every angle. The Abbs family arrived in the Rolls-Royce convoy with King Solomon's household. The king stood tall at the gates, greeting teachers and architects who had gathered to meet their new science master. Greetings and introductions. Rich led his children forward, Ocean on her leash, his blazer crisp in the desert sun. The king's voice carried as he spoke. Brothers and sisters, this is Professor Rich Abbs, a man whose science unites body and light. He will instruct not with the decayed books of yesterday, but with the living texts of water and quantum law. Hands extended, greetings were exchanged. Rich said warmly to each, "Good morning, my name is Rich." "Bonjour, je m'appelle Rich." "Assalamu alaikum, alaikum ismi Rich." The children followed their father's lead. Christopher said, "Hello, my name is Christopher," while Falcon offered, "Nice to meet you," with a small bow of her head. Osiris, practicing carefully, repeated, "Assalamu alaikum." Amor and Chanel, hands joined, giggling as they said bonjour together. Nadessa, standing proudly with them, added, "Welcome to Kemet." The small exchanges of greeting and introduction made everyone smile, a bridge of language before lessons even began. Black's anatomy. At the king's request, Rich had spent the previous evening revising his adult course, Black's Anatomy, into a version accessible for children. He stripped away the outdated physics model of pumps and levers and replaced it with imagery of water, magnetism, and quantum coherence. By the third period of the school day, he stood before his new 5th grade class. Chanel, Amor, Nadessa, and 24 more children from the region. On the chalkboard, he wrote in large letters, "Black's Anatomy, the living body." He began with his voice steady. "Children, most books would tell you that the heart is only a pump, but here you will learn the truth. Your heart is a conductor. Your blood flows not only because of muscles, but because water responds to magnetism and light." The children leaned forward, eyes bright. Rich dipped chalk into blue pigment and drew a wave. "This is the Christ wave. You will learn to see it not as numbers on a screen, but as the song of your own body." He asked the class, "Can anyone tell me what happens to water when light shines on it?" Nadessa's hand shot up first. "It sparkles," she said. Rich smiled, and yes, more than that, it stores charge, just like you. Consulting on physical education and nutrition. Later that day, Rich met with the head of physical education and the school nutrition director. They greeted him at a long oak table, shaking hands. "Good afternoon, sir," one said. Rich replied, "Good afternoon, my friend." He leaned forward, his tone serious but encouraging. "You are training the next generation," he said. "They must not be fed like machines, but like conductors of light. Processed sugar calcifies the riverbanks of the body. Bitter greens open the current. Pigment-rich foods, mangoes, spinach, black beans, they do more than feed the stomach. They conduct light through the vessels." The physical education, Rich suggested combining athleticism and sacred rhythm. Push-ups, squats, heel and toe raises, jumping jacks. These are not just exercises, they are prayers in motion. Let the children practice them at regular intervals, not to burn calories, but to move light through their circuits. The educators nodded, taking notes. One replied, "We are honored, Professor Rich. This will change the very way our children grow." By the end of the day, the classrooms hummed with new energy. The king observed quietly from a balcony, pride in his eyes. His wife whispered, "He does not only teach the children, he reteaches the land." The Rolls Royces hummed softly as they carried the family back through the city and out toward the palace. The desert was beginning to cool, the pyramids glowing red in the last rays of the sun. Inside the car, the children buzzed with energy, talking over one another, eager to share their impressions of the first day. Christopher leaned forward, animated. "Dad, the other kids actually want to learn this stuff. It's not like back in Michigan where half the class was asleep. Everyone was asking questions about the waves and water, even the older kids." Osiris added quickly, "Yeah, and there's this one kid, Seth. He kept saying he doesn't believe any of it. That is, it's all just magic talk. I think he's going to be the class skeptic, maybe even a bully. He was making faces the whole time you were teaching, Dad." Falcon crossed her arms. "Well, at least our teachers are amazing. Madam Layla, the literature teacher, she says she's going to let us write poems about science. Can you believe that? Poems." Amore and Chanel chimed in together from the back seat. "And we got to sit with Nadessa all day. She showed us her favorite desk by the window. She says she's going to teach us Arabic words every lunch." Nadessa, riding with them, beamed proudly. "And they'll teach me American songs. It's fair." Rich chuckled, listening to all of it with quiet satisfaction. Remember, children, not every classmate will believe the truth right away. But if you stay patient, your light will win them over. Dinner at the palace. By the time they returned, long shadows stretched across the palace courtyard. Servants carried in trays for dinner, and the family gathered around a broad cedar table. Tonight's meal was hearty yet light. Stuffed grape leaves with rice and herbs, roasted cauliflower with turmeric, flatbreads and bowls of lentil soup. A platter of fresh figs and dates sat in the center for dessert. As they ate, the conversation carried on. Falcon said, "I think Madam Layla is my favorite teacher already." Osiris muttered, "Well, Seth's already my least favorite. Everyone laughed, the tension breaking. Christopher grinned. Don't worry, little brother. I'll deal with Seth if he gives you trouble. Ocean, their Rottweiler, rested by Rich's feet, her eyes following every movement of food. One of the butlers passed by with a smile and said, "She is already famous in the kitchen. They say she stole a whole basket of bread rolls this morning." The children burst out laughing and Rich shook his head. That sounds like her. Evening ritual. At 9 p.m., the family stepped out into the cool courtyard under a dome of stars. Together, they performed their prayer ritual. Heel raises, squats, push-ups, and jumping jacks. Their voices weaving thanks for the ferry boats alight, the vineyard, the royal arch of the Wa scepter. The air felt charged as if the pyramids themselves listened in the distance. Afterward, they retired to their rooms. Christopher sketched waves and notes from class into a small leather-bound journal. Falcon lay on her bed writing her first poem about light and water. Osiris tapped the ball against the wall, imagining how he might win over Seth. Amor and Chanel whispered to Nadessa about what songs they would teach her tomorrow. Rich stood at the window, looking out at the desert night, Ocean's head resting against his leg. Day 1 complete. He whispered, "Tomorrow, we begin again." The bell rang and the chatter of the hallway spilled into Rich's 5th grade classroom. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, and the children, Chanel, Amor, Nadessa, and their classmates, settled into their seats. Notebooks open, pencils ready. The chalkboard already bore Rich's steady hand. 3rd period, photosynthesis and the Krebs cycle. The friendship between stars, plants, and people. Rich stood at the front, blazer open, Ocean lying quietly near the door. The room already sensing this was going to be more like a story than a lesson. The story of friendship. Children, Rich began, his voice low and warm. Let us not think of science as cold or complicated. Today, I will tell you about a friendship between the stars, the plants, and the people. He drew 3 circles on the board, connecting them in a triangle. The star creates light from atoms called hydrogen, he said, drawing rays from the first circle. The plant takes that light from hydrogen, drinks water made of hydrogen, breathes carbon dioxide, and makes food from it. That food becomes sugar, sweet energy. This is called photosynthesis, but you can think of it like a letter from the sun. The plant is the postman carrying the star's message of hydrogen in the form of sugar. Amor raised her hand. So when I eat an apple, I'm reading a letter from the sun? Rich smiled. Exactly, Amor. Every bite is the star saying, I see you. Stay strong. The people's turn. He pointed to the 3rd circle. But the letter must be answered. When people eat the sugar, the body sends it into tiny chambers called mitochondria. There, the Krebs cycle spins like a wheel, round and round, It breaks the sugar apart looking for hydrogen, making small light capsules called ATP, the energy that makes us move, think, and live. Chanel tilted her head. So the cycle is like us listening to the sun? Yes, Rich nodded. Every time you run or laugh or even blink your eyes, you are writing or talking back to the stars. The Krebs cycle is your ears to the sun. The energy is your words from the sun, blessing you with life. Daily ritual. To make the point stick, Rich asked them to stand. The desk scraped lightly as children rose, curious. Let us act out this friendship, he said. When I say star, you reach up high, arms wide. When I say plant, you squat down low, like roots drinking water. When I say people, you jump, clapping your hands, showing the spark of energy. He began slowly. The star shines. The children stretched upward. The plant drinks and grows. They squatted down. The people answer with light. They jumped and clapped and laughed. They repeated it faster until the room was alive with motion and sound. Even Nadessa, usually calm, was giggling. Closing the circle. When they sat back down, cheeks flushed, Rich lowered his voice again. Do you see now? Science is not separate from you. Every day you breathe, you are keeping in touch with the stars. Plants are the messengers between heaven and earth. The sugar you eat, the energy you use, it is all a part of one conversation. He wrote on the board, star, plant, people, star. This is not just biology, he said. It is a ritual of connection. Even from far away, the stars, the trees, plants of all sizes, algae in the water, and your own cells are never alone. They are always writing to each other, talking to each other, always answering back, a simple form of information sharing between stars, people, and plants. The bell rang, but the children lingered, whispering to each other about apples as letters or star messages, and breathing as a way of talking to the sun. Chanel leaned over to Nadessa. I'll never eat grapes the same way again. Nadessa nodded, eyes shining. It's like the stars are inside us. Rich gathered his notes, heart steady. The third period had ended, but he knew this lesson, this friendship, would stay with them much longer. The lunch bell rang, and the palace convoy of children poured into the bright stone cafeteria. The room smelled of cumin, fresh bread, and roasted vegetables. Tables were lined with trays of colorful food. Nothing like the greasy pizza or fries Chris remembered from Michigan. Here, the trays gleamed with spiced lentils, falafel, hummus, tabbouleh, stuffed peppers, bowls of grapes, mango slices, and cups of pomegranate seeds. Carafes of mint water stood at every table. Mar, Kalinda, and Nadessa guided the Abs children into the room with pride. Everyone, Mar said loudly, these are my new brothers and sisters from Michigan. Christopher, Osiris, Falcon, Amor, and Chanel. Nadessa tugged at her tray and added, and Ocean, the dog lives with us too, but she can't come inside. The other children laughed, waving their eyes curious and warm. The Abs children sat down among their new classmates. Falcon whispered, "This is like a feast," as she scooped tabbouleh onto her plate. Osiris was busy tasting everything, declaring, "The falafel is better than burgers," while Amor and Chanel shared a bowl of mango slices with Nadessa, all three giggling as the juice dripped down their fingers. The green juice. Christopher, always the steady one, decided to get something extra. He walked to the juice counter, where tall bottles of fresh green juice, cucumber, mint, apple, and parsley stood chilled in glass. "How much?" he asked. The clerk, a young man in a white apron, replied, 50 Egyptian pounds. Chris frowned, patted his pocket. All he had was a $10 American bill. He held it out sheepishly. "Can I use this? What's the exchange rate?" The clerk studied the bill, then smiled. "Today's rate is about $1 to 30 Egyptian pounds. So $10 is 300 pounds. The juice is 50, so you'll get 250 pounds in change." He took the 10, set the green bottle on the counter, and counted back the change carefully. 2 100-pound notes and 1 50-pound note. "Here you go, sir." Chris nodded, tucking the bills into his pocket. "Thank you." Then he hesitated. "What time is it?" The clerk glanced at the clock. "It's 12:47 p.m. Chris's stomach sank. Gym starts at 1, he thought. "I'm late." He thanked the clerk again, grabbed his bottle, and hurried back to the table, already planning how fast he could eat before running across campus. The gymnasium was a freestanding building, squat and sturdy, with high windows that poured sunlight across polished wood floors. The air smelled faintly of chalk, sneakers, and fresh desert air drifting in through the vents. Students lined up in rows, stretching and laughing. Christopher still clutched his green juice. Mar buzzed with anticipation. At the center, Coach Malik, a wiry man with broad shoulders, dark skin glistening under the lights. His whistle hung loose around his neck as he barked instructions. "Push-ups first. We honor the body before we test it." He dropped and banged out 20 like it was nothing. The kids followed, sneakers squeaking against the floor. And then the sound came. Crash! The ceiling above them exploded in a rain of plaster and steel. The roar of splintering beams filled the gym as 4 dark figures dropped from the rafters like shadows come to life. Dressed in all black, their faces masked, their hands gloved, they moved with a predator's silence, weapons glinting under the fluorescent lights. The children screamed, scattering, some diving under the bleachers. Coach Malik didn't flinch. His eyes narrowed, muscles taut. "Not today," he growled. One ninja lunged first, swinging a short baton. Malik sidestepped, drove his elbow into the man's ribs, and flipped him over his shoulder. Crack! The attacker slammed into the floor. Another came low, sweeping at Malik's legs. Malik vaulted into a backflip, landing square on his feet. then launched a roundhouse kick that snapped the man's mask sideways. The kids gasped, eyes wide. Their teacher moved like a storm. 2 more attackers circled him, twin blades flashing. Malik grabbed a broomstick from the corner, spinning it with impossible speed. Wood cracked against steel. Sparks flew. Blades clattered to the ground. The broomstick splintered but held up. Malik drove the shaft into one man's chest, sending him crashing into the bleachers. It was 1 against 4, and Malik was winning. But then came the trick. The last standing ninja drew something from his belt, a taser, high voltage, crackling with blue light. Malik blocked one strike with the broomstick, shattered another baton, and then zap. The electricity slammed into his side. His body seized, muscles locking up, breath ripping from his lungs. The broomstick fell from his hands, clattering uselessly to the floor. The children screamed as 2 ninjas lifted Malik's convulsing body, dragging him toward the gaping hole they made. Outside, an all-white van idled, its engine snarling. The side door yawned open. With brutal efficiency, they heaved him inside, slammed the door shut, and the van screeched forward. Tires spitting sand and smoke. The Royal Guard. But they weren't fast enough. The Royal Guard stormed the gym's perimeter within seconds. Men in desert-colored uniforms with rifles and shields. The gym doors burst open, sunlight flooding in as boots thundered across the court. The van was already peeling out through the far gates. But the guards gave chase, trucks roaring to life, sirens wailing through the palace compound. Children huddled together, shaking. Dust floated down in beams of light where the ceiling had been torn open. Christopher clenched his fist, whispering to Ma. They knew exactly what they were doing. Ma's jaw tightened. Yeah, and we saw their faces. Even if they were covered, whoever they are, they just started something big. The echo of the van's tires still rang in the air as the gym fell silent. The smell of ozone lingering where Malik had stood. Royal shockwave. The palace buzzed like a hive after the kidnapping. Guards marched in double lines through the halls, radios crackling. Parents crowded the school gates demanding answers. Rumors spread faster than sand in the wind. Was it a rival kingdom? A faction inside Kemet? A betrayal from within? That afternoon, the entire school gathered in the courtyard. King Solomon himself stepped onto the stone platform, his robe of white and gold catching the desert light. His voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. Children, teachers, families. Today, enemies tried to strike at your heart. But know this, the school will not bow to fear. You will continue to learn, to grow, to shine brighter than the darkness that stalks us. We are Kemet, and Kemet does not break. The courtyard erupted in applause, but beneath it all, the whispering grew. Why the gym? Why Malik? Why so precise? Dinner tension. That night, dinner in the palace was subdued. Platters of roasted chickpeas, saffron rice, and figs sat on the long cedar table, but little was eaten. The children picked at their plates. their minds still in the gym. Rich studied King Solomon across the table. The king's eyes didn't just look troubled, they looked knowing. He held himself like a man already familiar with the shadows that had fallen across his kingdom. Rich felt it deep in his chest. Solomon knew more than he was saying. But Rich didn't press. Instead, he bowed his head over his plate, letting the silence stretch. Not yet, he thought. The truth will come when it's ready. The children's pack. Later, after the plates had been cleared, Christopher and Mars slipped out into the courtyard. The night was warm. Stars scattered across the desert sky. Ocean padded beside them, ears twitching. Her nose tilted to the air as if she too searched for answers. Christopher's voice was low, sharp with urgency. We can't just sit around waiting for the gods. We were there, Mar. We saw it. Whoever those men were, they knew exactly what they were doing. Mar crossed his arms, frowning. You're saying we investigate? On our own? Chris nodded, eyes hard. Yes. With or without the adults. If we don't, Malik is gone forever. For a moment, Mar hesitated, staring at the pyramids on the horizon, their edges glowing faint under the moonlight. Then he extended his hand. All right, we find him. Together. They clasped hands, the pack sealed. From the balcony above, Osiris watched silently, catching only fragments of their words. His jaw clenched. If Chris and Ma are going, I'm not staying behind. The desert night thickened with secrets, and somewhere beyond the walls of the palace, the all-white van carried Coach Malik deeper into the shadows. Third period. Chlorophyll and pigment. The sun hung high and bright, spilling golden light into the classroom. The chatter of children quieted as Rich stepped to the board, blazer open, chalk in hand. Behind him, written in broad letters, chlorophyll and pigment, how energy becomes information. Ocean dozed near the door, her ears twitching at the sound of the children's whispers. Chanel, Amor, and Nadessa sat front row, pencils poised, eyes shining. Rich began, voice low and steady. Yesterday we learned that hydrogen carries the message of the stars. But how does that message get translated? How do plants take raw light and turn it into sugar you can actually eat? He drew a leaf on the board, veins spreading like a hand. In the middle, he shaded it deep green. This green, he said, tapping the chalk against it, is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is pigment, a substance that doesn't just catch light, it translates it. Think of pigment as a teacher. Light is wild and fast, but pigment takes it, calms it, and turns it into instructions. The class leaned in. The story of pigment. Imagine the sun sends down a beam of energy. It's raw power. If it just slammed into you, it will burn. But pigment catches it, like a hand catching a ball, and then whispers to the plant. Here's what this means. Build sugar, grow roots, make fruit. So the pigment isn't just color. Pigment is translation. Pigment is how energy becomes information. Amor raised her hand. So when I eat spinach, I'm eating the green translator? Rich smiled. Exactly. You're not just eating food, you're eating a translator's notebook. The green ink of the stars, copied down in the cells of a leaf, and now copied again in you. Nadessa tilted her head. Does our body have pigment too? Yes, Rich said firmly. Your eyes have pigment, your skin has pigment, even inside your brain there is pigment. That pigment is constantly talking to light, turning energy into meaning, turning light into memory. Daily ritual connection. To drive the point home, Rich had the children stand. When I say light, raise your arms like rays. When I say pigment, hold your palms wide as if catching the light. When I say information, touch your head, showing that energy has become knowledge. He began. The light shines. Arm shot up. The pigment catches. Palms spread wide. The information grows. Small hands touch their heads, eyes closing in thought. The children repeated it, their motions becoming rhythmic, almost like prayer. Laughter bubbled, but underneath it, something sacred stirred. Closing the lesson. When they sat again, Rich wrote 3 words on the board in big letters. Light, pigment, information. Remember this, he said. Without pigment, the light is wild. Without light, the pigment is silent. But together, they form the language of life. Every apple, every grape, every leaf is speaking. The question is, are we listening? The bell rang, but no one moved. Nadessa whispered to Chanel, "It's like the leaves are talking right now." Chanel nodded. "And maybe our skin is answering back." Rich gathered his notes, his heart steady. Another stone had been laid in their foundation. Lunchtime conspiracy. The lunchroom buzzed with voices and the clatter of trays. The usual chatter about homework and favorite foods was muted today, though the kidnapping still hung in the air like smoke. Christopher and Marsh stood up at their table, trays pushed aside. Ocean wasn't allowed inside, but even without her, the room seemed to pause when Chris raised his hand for quiet. "Listen," he said firmly, looking across faces of all ages. 5th graders with wide eyes, 7th graders whispering, 9th graders with narrowed stares. We all saw what happened yesterday. We know Coach Malik was taken, but the adults, the teachers, the guards, even the king, they're not telling us everything. Mark crossed his arms, voice sharp. And if we wait for them, we'll never get the truth. So it's on us. If you saw anything, no matter how small, speak now. At first, the room was still. Then a hand went up. A 9th grade girl with long braids and steady eyes. She stood, voice low but clear. I saw the van's license plate. I memorized the numbers. 4397-KT. Gasp spread through the room. Good, Chris said, nodding. That's our first lead. Another voice rose, deeper, confident. An 11th grader stepped forward, tall and wiry, his notebook tucked under his arm. Name's Tahuti. I'm good with computers. If you get me that plate number, I could track it, cross-reference databases, find out who owns it. Might take time, but I could do it. Excited whispers broke out around the tables. Some kids looked scared, others thrilled, but all of them leaned in. Mar lowered his voice, scanning the room. But no teachers, no parents, no guards. This is our mission. If they wanted us to know, they would have told us. We spy, we share, and we move like shadows. Chris added, quietly, carefully. If anyone asks, this conversation never happened. The bell rang, shrill and echoing, breaking the circle. Students grabbed trays and notebooks, heading back to class, but their eyes told the story. The secret had been planted. As Chris and Mar walked out together, Tahuti brushed past them, whispering, "Bring me the plate number after school. We'll see where this trail leads." The hallway swallowed them in noise again, but now the children of Kemet carried a secret undercurrent, pulsing like a hidden current beneath the ordinary day. Royal Office, Solomon and the Captain. The palace office was dim, lit only by shafts of afternoon light that cut through high windows and fell across scrolls, maps, and stacks of intelligence reports. The heavy doors closed with a boom, leaving King Solomon and Captain Ra-Hotep, head of the royal guard, alone. The king stood at the wide cedar desk, fist pressed against the wood, his gold ring glinting. 2 days, Captain. 2 days and you bring me nothing. No leads, no names, not even a rumor worth chasing. My children, my guests, watch their teacher stolen from under your guard's nose. Captain Ra-Hotep's jaw tightened, his desert-colored uniform still dusty from the chase. He stepped forward, voice low but edged like steel. "And what of you, my king? You act as if you know more than you say. My men asked for full disclosure. Who would dare send assassins into your school? Who would risk a strike against your palace? And yet you speak of shadows instead of enemies." The words hung like heat between them. Solomon's eyes burned, but his voice dropped to a growl. "Careful, Captain. You forget yourself." Ra-Hotep didn't flinch. "I forget nothing. I've served this house 20 years. I bled in deserts. I buried men in its name. If I fail, it is because my king withholds the truth." The king turned, staring out the arc window where the pyramids cut into the skyline like knives. His reflection shimmered in the glass, weary but unbroken. "If I spoke all I knew, the school would be empty tomorrow. Parents would flee. The children would be scattered, and our enemies would laugh. Some truths are not ready for the light." Ra-Hotep's hand curled into a fist. "Then do not demand miracles from me while tying my hands." The silence after was heavy, broken only by the ticking of a brass clock. Finally, Solomon turned back, his eyes like fire restrained. "Find Malik, dead or alive, or you leave your post." The captain bowed stiffly, his voice flat. "As you command, my king." The doors opened, boots echoing on the marble floor as Ra-Hotep stormed out, leaving Solomon alone with the weight of secrets too dangerous to share. Dinner at the palace. The Abs family and Solomon's children sat together at the long seated table. Trays of couscous, lentils, roasted vegetables, and mangoes spread before them. Conversation was light, even playful. The twins argued over who got the bigger fig. Nadessa tried teaching Amor and Chanel a new Arabic phrase, and Osiris teased Falcon about her perfect posture. To anyone watching, it was a normal night. Too normal. Christopher exchanged glances with Ma. Both of them ate fast, eyes flicking towards the clock. The sneak out. Later, the palace quieted. Guards changed shifts, servants cleared dishes, and the heavy silence of night rolled in. But in one wing of the guest quarters, the Abs kids were anything but asleep. Christopher unzipped a black duffel he had brought from Michigan. Hidden at the bottom of his suitcase, inside, the goodies gleamed faintly. Compact plasma sticks that extended into staffs with a flick of the wrist, pulse darts that fired silent electromagnetic shocks, and at the center, wrapped in foam, a sleek black device no bigger than a notebook. The long-distance digital communicator linked directly to Architect, the most advanced AI on Earth. Its silver edge pulsed faintly, alive, waiting. Good thing we brought goodies from home, Christopher whispered, pulling out 2 plasma sticks and handing one to Osiris. Falcon slipped the communicator into her backpack. In the brain of brains, she said softly, Architect doesn't miss. The twins grinned, strapping on compact wrist shields that hummed to life with a blue glow. We're ready, they whispered in unison. With practiced stealth, the 8 children, Christopher, Falcon, Osiris, Amor, Chanel, Mar, Kalinda, and Nadessa, moved through the hallways. Ocean padded silently alongside them, her tags muffled in cloth so they wouldn't clink. They ducked past the kitchens, slipped out a servant's side door, and disappeared into the warm desert night. Rendezvous at the movie theater. The city streets buzzed quieter than in the day. Lanterns glowing, food vendors shutting down, children chasing each other barefoot. The group stuck to alleys, their steps quick but careful. Finally, they reached the old movie theater, its neon sign flickering in half-lit Arabic script. Waiting outside, leaning against a stone wall, was Tahuti, a laptop case slung across his shoulder. You came, he said, his voice low, eyes sharp. Christopher grinned. We said we would. Mars stepped forward. This is everyone. No adults, no guards, just us. Tahuti tapped his laptop bag. Then let's go to work. I've got the van's plate number ready to trace, but once we start, we can't turn back. Whoever those men were, they'll know someone's looking. The theater lights buzzed above them, casting long shadows across the children. For a moment, it felt like they were stepping into something much larger than themselves. Christopher looked at each face, his siblings, Solomon's children, Tahuti, and nodded. Then we don't turn back. Morning broke warm and gold over Kemet. At 6 a.m., the Abs family gathered in the courtyard for their 4.5-minute prayer. Heels, toes, squats, push-ups, jumping jacks. Giving thanks for the ferry boats alight and the breath that keeps the river moving. Ocean sat like a sentry, tail thumping softly. Before they finished cooling down, palace bells rang and phones lit up. School was canceled. Word spread in a rush. Captain Rahotep and the royal guard had infiltrated an abandoned temple before dawn and rescued Coach Malik on a tip. No one said where the tip came from. No one knew why the kidnapping happened on school grounds. But the headline was simple: Malik is alive. By mid-morning, a small ceremony formed in the school courtyard. Rahotep stood straight as a spear while parents applauded and guards clapped him on the shoulder. King Solomon praised his captain for swift action and unwavering courage. Malik, bandaged and pale but standing, managed a grin and a raised fist. The gym windows were already boarded. A crew measured the roof where the sky had come crashing in. Normal seep back in by afternoon. Normal-ish. Extra guards walked the halls. ID checks appeared at the gates. Teachers tried smiling wider than they felt. Kids whispered in clusters, telling and retelling the story with new details each time. In the palace, dinner felt lighter. More laughter, more mango slices disappearing fast. The twins asked if Coach Malik would teach again. Nadessa promised to make him a get well card with green leaves and little lightning bolts. Christopher and Mar exchanged a look but said nothing. Falcon slid the backpack with the silent communicator deeper under her bed. Osiris tapped the notebook closed. Tahuti's name was written on the inside cover and underlined twice. Architect slept in the dark like a shuttered star. That night at 9 p.m. beneath a sky pricked with desert light, the family completed their last prayer. The pyramids loomed. The air felt easier, and for a brief breath, it seemed the current had smoothed. Everyone went back to normal. Well, normal-ish. The bell rang for third period, and the room settled. Sunlight pooled on the floor. Ocean dozed by the door. On the board, Rich wrote, "Physics versus quantum mechanics. Stuff and the energy inside stuff." Today, Rich said, we learned two kinds of science, friends. Both are true. Both are useful. They just look at the world from different sizes. He drew two boxes. Physics, the science of stuff you can see and measure. Balls, bridges, bicycles, your heartbeat. Quantum mechanics, the science of the energy inside the stuff, the tiny parts, and the rules of their aura and vibe. He turned, tapping the chalk. All the stuff you could touch is called matter. All matter is made of atoms. When we talk about things made of atoms, how far they fly, how fast they roll, we are doing physics. When we talk about what atoms are made of, electrons, protons, neutrons, and how their energy behaves, sometimes like a wave, sometimes like a little packet of light, we are doing quantum mechanics. Chanel raised her hand. So physics is the soccer ball and quantum is the energy inside the ball? Exactly, Rich smiled. Physics tells us how the ball arcs into the goal. Quantum tells us how the atoms in the ball hold together. How electrons, the ball's atoms, are made of sheer energy. So the ball doesn't fall apart. He drew three lines that met like a triangle. Stuff, physics, energy, quantum, information, life. Yesterday we learned that pigment turns light into information. Chlorophyll works because deep inside, tiny energy steps happen at the quantum level. Then leaves grow and fruits form. Things we can see and weigh. That's physics. The two are partners. Mini demo. Class motions. Stand up. Stand up, everybody, Rich said, grinning. 3 moves, 3 ideas. 1. Stuff. Physics. Everyone pretends to throw a ball across the room. 2. Energy. Quantum. Everyone wiggles fingers quickly. Tiny parts buzzing with energy. 3. Bridge. Everyone touches head and heart. This is where energy becomes information we can use. They repeated the sequence, throw, wiggle, touch, until the room had a gentle rhythm. Kid-friendly rules. Rich wrote simple rules on the board. Physics asks, how far, how fast, how heavy? Quantum asks, how charged, how likely, how does light talk to matter? Both together say, this is how stars, plants, and people stay connected. Nadessa asks, why does quantum say likely? Great question, Rich said. At tiny sizes, things don't always act the same way each time. We talk about chances like rolling dice. But with light and charge, that maybe is part of the rules of the tiny world. Heru nodded. So physics is the rules of the playground. Quantum is the rules of the bricks that made the playground? Perfect, said Rich. And hydrogen, our traveler from the stars, follows both sets of rules. Quantum tells us how hydrogen's energy moves. Physics tells us how that energy becomes muscles moving, hearts beating, and you jumping in the gym. Chalkboard summary for notebooks and translation. All matter is made of atoms. Physics studies things made of atoms. Motion, forces, weight. Quantum mechanics studies what atoms are made of and how their energy behaves. Electrons, light, charge. Pigment helps turn light, energy into information plants and people can use. We need both. Physics for the big world, quantum for the tiny engine inside it. Rich capped the marker. Remember, our sentence of the day, say it with me slowly. Physics is the science of stuff. Quantum is the science of the energy inside the stuff. Together, they make the world make sense. The bell rang. No one rushed the door. Chanel whispered, "Stuff, energy, information." More added in. Big rules and tiny rules, same family. Nadessa smiled, and Pigment is the translator. Ocean thumped her tail once as if she agreed. The lunchroom buzzed, trays clattering, when two guards in desert uniforms stepped up to Christopher Marr and Tahuti. Captain Rahotep would like a word. The room fell quiet as they were escorted down the corridor to the main office. Cool stone, maps pinned to corkboards, a radio murmuring in the corner. Rahotep stood behind a wide desk, sleeves rolled, eyes steady. Sit. He didn't circle them, he cut straight through. This morning, my team received an anonymous packet, plate trace, shell company tree, satellite overlays, even a breath-coupled electromagnetic signature from beneath an old temple. His gaze flicked from Chris to Mar, then over to Tahuti. That level of precision doesn't fall from the sky. Do either of you know anything about that tip? Christopher's face stayed calm. No, sir. Mar matched it. We heard what everyone else heard. Silence. Tahuti stared at the floor. Jaw working, hands worrying the edge of his notebook. Rahotep exhaled, a hint of a smile ghosting his mouth. He turned the radio down and spoke softer. Stand up, Tahuti. The boy rose. Rahotep's voice warmed by a single degree. These two are your friends. They deserve to know why I'm not pushing harder. He looked back to Chris and Ma. He's my nephew. The air shifted. Chris and Ma traded a glance. The message was clear. Tahuti had told him. But Rahotep raised a hand before anyone could speak. Your secret stays with me, he said. I owe you one. The kingdom owes you one. And you? He fixed Tahuti with a look. You owe them your silence outside this room. He stepped aside, opened the door. Back to class. Walk out like this never happened. They did. Calm, steady. 3 shadows crossing a sunlit hall. That night, the long-seated table filled with steam and spice. Lentil stew, saffron rice, roasted okra, bowls of figs and dates. Conversation hummed until King Solomon set down his cup. Boys, he said evenly. Did you hear anything about the tip that led Rahotep to Coach Malik? Rich's eyes were kind but searching. Anything at all? Christopher glanced at Ma. Ma gave the smallest nod. We heard what everyone else heard, they said, almost together. A beat. The king held their gaze a heartbeat longer than comfort, then smiled and reached for the bread. Rich let it pass with a quiet, approving tap of his fingers on the table. The room loosened again. The twins bickered over the last fig. Ocean sighed under the table like a tired drum. They ate, they laughed, they admitted nothing. They woke before the sun, gathered in the courtyard at 6 a.m., and moved as one. Heels and toes, squats, push-ups, and jumping jacks. 4.5 minutes of breath and thanks rolling softly off their tongues. After the prayer, before breakfast, the children slipped into one bedroom and closed the door. Christopher spoke first. We let it go, he said. Looking from face to face, Mar nodded. Falcon added, but we keep our eyes open, always. Tahuti tapped his notebook once more. Quiet eyes, he said. No more plans, no midnight missions, just watchfulness. A day became a week and then 2. School settled into its new rhythm. Extra guards at the gates, ID checks that felt more like routine than fear. Third period for the fifth graders kept blooming. Light, pigment, hydrogen, while the middle school halls hummed with whispers and group projects. The high school corridor carried the heavy stride of exams, lab reports, and the thrum of training in physical education. Ocean became famous for napping perfectly still beside classroom doors. Normal returned. Normal-ish held. Word spread the night before. Baba Malik would be back. By lunch, the campus buzzed like a beehive. Trays clinked. Sunlight flashed on still water pitchers. The air smelled of cumin, mint, and warm flatbread. Amor, Chanel, and Nadessa compared drawings for a welcome back coach card, green leaves, tiny lightning bolts, a broomstick turning into a spear. Falcon and Kalinda debated which poem to recite if they saw him. Osiris leaned against the column, quiet, watching. Across the room, Christopher and Ma sat with Tahuti, heads low over a map of the day's schedule they absolutely didn't need. Fifth block, gym, Ma said, tapping the grid. He's really doing it. Med clearance at dawn, Tahuti murmured. Signed off, he insisted. Christopher closed the schedule and looked up. Around them, the whole cafeteria felt charged, like the second before a drum hits. Snatches of rumor drifted past. He fought them like a movie. They tasered him. He's bringing back the old drills. New mats in the gym. Did you see? Through the windows, the gym roof looked new. Fresh panels. A pale seam of repair shining in the sun. Security cameras blinked on their poles. The bell rang. Silver and clean. Benches scraped. The 11th graders were already on their feet. Let's go, Chris said, shouldering his bag. Ma rose beside him. Tahuti snapped his laptop case shut. Across the courtyard, the younger kids fell into their own lines for class, waving wildly when they caught sight of the high schoolers moving toward the gym. The doors ahead stood tall and newly painted, smelling faintly of resin and fresh wood. Somewhere inside, a whistle blew once, short, certain. Baba Malik was back, and the whole school walked a little faster. Fifth period, the gym felt brand new. Resin in the air, fresh lines on the floor, sunlit spilling through the high windows. Baba Malik stepped out with the whistle and a grin like nothing had ever happened. He opened his arms. Welcome back, athletes. Chris leaned toward Ma, voice low. His aura is lit. For the first 20 minutes, Malik kept it simple. Long calf and hamstring holds, hip and shoulders, breath sink to stretch, in through the nose, down through the feet. He coached, pacing the circle. Then he had everyone sit cross-legged in one huge ring, knees almost touching. The gym gone quiet, but for the hum of the vents. Today, Malik said, your lesson starts 4,000 years ago. He tapped the tablet. The wall screen filled with painted figures, tan bodies in pairs, arms hooking, hips turning. Beni Hassan, the tomb of Becket III. Around 2000 BC, more than 400 scenes of wrestlers' holds, throws, counters laid out like an ancient instruction manual. The roots of what you call jiu-jitsu aren't across the sea. They're in this soil. Written 4,000 years ago on our walls. He walked the circle, pointing to frames. You see this? Hip turn before the lift. Here, wrist control becomes shoulder control. And here, drop your weight. Don't fight force. Redirect it. He smiled. We will be learning these sequences slowly, cleanly, with respect. A hand shot up. Coach, is that what you used on the word died in midair? Malik's eyes crinkled. He laughed, warm, easy, and the whole circle followed, tension popping like a bubble. He only said, class, the past teaches the present, and gave a little bow. Ring. The bell rang. Mats rustled, sneakers squeaked, and the ring dissolved into motion. Everyone buzzing. Half about the art on the walls, half about the man who brought it to life. The last period dragged under a warm wash of afternoon sun. Osiris was half listening when a rectangle of paper whisked under the classroom door and skidded to his sneaker. He bent, palmed it, and unfolded the tight handwriting. Bathroom, now. Tea. He raised his hand. Hall pass? The teacher glanced at the clock, signed a slip, and Osiris stepped into the echoing corridor, the smell of cleaner and chalk dust mixing in the vents. Tahuti was already in the tile bathroom, pacing between the sinks, eyes crackling like he'd swallowed a lightning bug. Listen, he said, barely above a whisper. I think the kidnapping wasn't just about grabbing a coach. It's martial arts and dark magic. A ritual plus technique. He jabbed a finger in the air, words tumbling too fast for air. Beni Hassan sequences, redirection angles, fine. But layered with symbols, timing, and interface? That's why the cameras glitched. That's why the taser hit like a curtain drop. Technique outside, ritual inside. Osiris opened his mouth. Tahu, don't talk. Tahuti cut him off, shaking his head. Just hear me out. The boys have to meet tonight. Same place, the movie theater, after dinner. Tell Chris and Ma. No messages, no phones, face to face. He pressed the folded note back into Osiris's palm like a seal, then back toward the door. After dinner, he repeated. eyes bright. And come quiet. The hall pass time ticked in Osiris's head. He slipped the note into his pocket, ran water over his hands so the teacher would believe the trip, and caught his reflection. Calm face, racing heart. After dinner, he whispered, and walked back into the hum of last period as if nothing had happened. The old theater's neon buzzed like a tired bee. Half the letters dead, casting green light over the empty sidewalk. Inside, the lobby was dark. The popcorn machine sat cold. Christopher slipped in first, Osiris on his heels, then Ma and Tahuti from the alley door. All four moving like they rehearsed this 100 times. They took the back row of the auditorium. No movie played, just the silver screen reflecting the aisle light. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Ma exhaled. I heard something. Palace talk. He kept his voice barely above a whisper. My father and Rich, your dad, might be related. Not close, but connected. The old way. Blood by oath. Chris blinked. Related how? Distant cousins, Ma said. That's what I picked up. I don't have proof, but it wasn't just gossip. Tahuti's knee bounced. My uncle Rahotep said something similar. He didn't say family like a family tree. He said ancient bloodline by oath. He shook his head. Whatever that means. Ancient bloodline by oath. Osiris leaned forward. Why tell us that now? Because, Tahuti said, his voice tightening. Rahotep also hinted the kidnappers would come back. He heard them say a word during the rescue op. They were in a rush and thought nobody caught it. Christopher's throat went dry. What word? Tahuti swallowed. Codex. Silence hollowed the theater. The screen seemed to pull backward. The room stretched around the single word. Osiris found his voice first, low and steady. If they said codex, they weren't after the gym. They were after our father. Chris's jaw set. Are you sure that's what your uncle heard? Tahuti didn't flinch. I'm sure. He wouldn't have told me if he wasn't. Ma looked from face to face, reading the same conclusion landing in all of them. Then this isn't over. Christopher stood, already turning toward the aisle. We need to get home. Now. Now, Osiris echoed, stuffing his hands into his pockets to hide the shake. They filed out the way they came. No words, no noise, just soft footfalls on the sticky floor. The neon's green hum fading behind them. Outside, the night felt thinner, edges sharper. They split at the corner without a plan beyond speed. Back through alleys, over the low garden wall, into servant corridors that smelled of stone and soap. At the palace doors, they were just four boys again. Breath steady, faces blank, slipping into the lamplight as if they'd never been gone at all. The bell rang for third period, and sunlight slid across the floor. On the board, Dr. Rich had already written, From one to many, how cells began and built us. Chanel, Amor, and Nadessa settled in front row. Ocean curled by the door like a quiet guard. Today, Rich began, we're going to tell the story of how life got organized. Think of Earth a very long time ago. Warm oceans, minerals, light, and lots of tiny molecules bumping around. No plants, no animals, just ingredients. He drew a big circle and shaded it blue. Water was the stage. In that water were special oily molecules that had two moods. One end loved water, the other hated it. When millions of these met, they did something amazing all by themselves. He sketched a tiny ring. They made bubbles. Not the kind that pop right away. These bubbles had membranes, a thin skin. The water-loving ends faced out. The water-shy ends tucked inside. That skin could hold things. It was like a little house. Amor raised her hand. So the first cells were tiny houses? Exactly, Rich smiled. A cell is a tiny house with a skin, the membrane, that keeps its tools safe inside. He drew little dots inside the bubble. Inside the cell kept food, water, and instructions. We call those instructions DNA. With a safe skin and good instructions, some bubbles learn to use energy better than others. They copied themselves. The ones that worked well made more of themselves. That's how life took root. Getting smarter by teamwork. Rich drew many little circles holding hands. Being alone is fine, but Earth learned a trick. Teamwork. Single cells start living together, first as tiny groups, like a village, then bigger groups, like a town, then organized teams where cells did one job, muscles, some did another, nerves, and some carried supplies, blood. That's how you build tissues and organs, and eventually plants, animals, and us. Nadessa tilted her head. How did they decide who does what? Great question. Part of the answer is in the instructions, DNA, and part is in signals they share, like tiny messages. Cells talk. They say, you be a skin cell, I'll be a nerve cell. With a good plan and good listening, the team becomes a body. He drew a leaf and a little person. Plants and animals both started from teams of cells learning to specialize. Leaves, roots, stems, teamwork. Heart, brain, skin, teamwork. From one cell to you. Rich drew a single circle, then doubled it. 1, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, etc. Every human starts as one fertilized cell. That one cell divides in 2, then 4, then 8, then many. The ball of cells becomes a hollow sphere. then folds and layers like careful origami. Those layers become organs and systems. You began as one and became many. Chanel whispered. So we're giant teams? Giant, well-organized teams, said Rich, tapping the board. And your membrane is still your first protector. Every cell you have keeps the world out and your life tools in with its membrane. Quick class motion to feel it. Stand up. Stand up, everybody, Rich said, grinning. Let's act it out. Membrane. Everyone forms a big circle, fingertips touching. Skin around empty space. Tools inside. 3 students step into the circle and mime, mixing and reading a book. Food, water, and DNA. Teamwork. More students form circles that link together. 2 circles, then 4. Little villages making a town. Laughter rose as the circles connected. When they sat, cheeks glowed and pencils were ready. Chalkboard summary for your notebooks. Water was the stage. Oily molecules self-assembled into a membrane, a protective skin. A cell equals membrane plus inside tools, food, water, DNA. Cells that handled energy and copying well made more of themselves. Teamwork of many cells, tissues, organs, plants, and animals. You began as one cell, then multiplied and specialized into you. Rich capped the marker. Remember our sentence of the day. Say it with me. Life began as bubbles with a plan. Membranes made the house. DNA wrote the instructions. And teamwork built the body. The bell rang. Nadessa turned to Amor and Chanel. Tiny houses became towns. Chanel nodded. We're the city. Amor smiled at her own hands, and every city keeps its walls strong. Ocean thumped her tail once as if to say, class dismissed. When the bell rang, the room emptied in a rush of sneakers and whispers. Rashad, tallest in the grade, shoulders hunched like he was trying to hide them, hung back by the door. When the last kid slipped out, he shuffled forward, eyes on the floor. Dr. Rich, are my cells different? Or bigger than everybody else's? Rich set the chalk down and sat on the front edge of a desk so they were eye to eye. Great question. Your cells aren't wrong or weird, Rashad. Most of your cells are the same size and type as everyone else's. Skin cells, muscle cells, blood cells. The big difference with weight is that fat cells, the ones that store energy, can fill up and get roomier. Like a backpack with more snacks inside. Sometimes we carry more energy than we're using. Rashad peeked up. So I'm just carrying more snacks? Rich smiled. Exactly. Extra stored energy. And the good news, we can use that energy. We help your muscles do more work. Help your water and sleep stay steady. And choose foods that tell your cells to share the stored energy back with the team. He pulled out a marker and drew 3 simple boxes on the board. Number 1, Move the current. Short circuits often. Heel raises, squats, push-ups, jacks. We already do the 4.5-minute prayer. Add a 10-minute walk with Ocean after school if you want. She loves new friends. Number 2, hydrate the river. A cup of water every hour you're awake. It helps your cells talk and move energy. Number 3, pigment plate. Greens, purples, reds. Spinach, beans, berries. Pigments help turn light into good signals for your cells. We've got full classes coming on this, Rich added. We'll go step by step how sleep helps, how breath helps, how muscles become better engines. I'll help you. We'll measure progress by how you feel and what you can do, not just numbers. Rashad's shoulders loosened. So my cells aren't bad. They're capable, Rich said, and they're on your side. We'll teach them a new rhythm. Rashad nodded, a grin sneaking in. Can I walk Ocean today? If her schedule allows, Rich joked, then tapped his own temple. Start with one promise for today. Which one? Rashad thought, then held up his finger. Water every hour? Done, Rich said, offering a fist bump. See you tomorrow, team leader. Rashad left the room with his head a little higher and a new pep in his step, like someone had just lightened the backpack he'd been carrying all alone. By then, lunch in the Great Hall had become a ritual of its own. The Abs kids and the Real kids sharing a long table, trading jokes and mango slices while the rest of the school watched them like a little weather system. Weeks slid by without incident. Everyone was in martial arts now. Mats unfurled each afternoon, bows before practice, breath steady. Rashad, the biggest 5th grader, hit his water every hour promise and stacked quiet wins. Longer plank holds, cleaner squats, a smile that showed up faster each day. Nothing strange. Normal-ish. Until Mar wandered deep into the school library and came back with a book that didn't feel like it should be touched with bare hands. It was bound in cracked brown leather, edges singed by time, a small embossed sigil on the front, 2 gripping figures framed by a thin crescent. The spine creaked when he opened it. The title was hand-inked across the first page in a mix of old forms. On the Hands and the Hidden. Arts of Combat and the Quiet Sciences. Margins were filled with tiny drawings, hips turns, wrist locks, foot circles, and between the sequences, lines about timing, stars, breath, and gates. Hip turns, wrist locks, foot circles, sequences, timing, stars, breath, and gates. That night, Mars set it on the dinner table like a found artifact. Platters of kashari, roasted carrots with cumin, bowls of figs waited around it. The room stilled. Father, Mother, Dr. Rich, Mars said, palms flat on the leather. I found this in the back stacks. It talks about martial arts and magic. What is it? King Solomon's eyes narrowed with recognition before he smoothed them. The queen traced the crescent on the cover without quite touching it. Rich leaned in. reading a few lines silently. Solomon cleared his throat. Some call this magic. In our house, we call it discipline and timing. These pages mix the Beni Hassan sequences you're learning, throws, counters, redirection, with the old study of when and how to move, breath counts, star positions, and the way attention changes force. It is not for play. Rich nodded. What you see as magic here is mostly signals. Breath changes the body's charge. Focus changes how a hand feels weight. If you treat it like a trick, you'll hurt someone. If you treat it like information, you'll protect people. Mar glanced at the notes in the margins. So these rituals between steps. Cautions, the queen said softly. Some schools wrote prayers into practice so the ego would not steer the hand. It kept the art from turning cruel. Christopher pointed to a heading penciled in another ink. Codex of Motion. The word hung between them. Solomon's gaze lifted and fixed on his son. You may study this only with us present. No copies, no late night experiments. What is clean for learning, we will keep. What binds the hand in darkness, we will close. Mar swallowed and nodded. Yes, Father. Rich turned a few more pages and tapped a diagram where a throw sequence sat beside a tiny sketch of a semi-lunar arc. And the note, never meet force head on. Open the gate and guide. He smiled lightly. This part, he said, we'll bring to class. The rest waits. Amor, wide-eyed, whispered, so martial arts and manners? Exactly, the queen said. Laughter eased in the room. Power with a temper. As dishes moved again and conversation loosened, Osiris noticed a faint stamp near the back. The same crescent, but doubled, with a thin bar through it. He glanced at Chris. Chris gave the smallest shake of his head. Not here, not now. King Solomon closed the book with both hands as if lowering a lid on a bright box. After dinner, the library, he said, will mark the pages that keep the body honest. The rest sleeps. They ate, they laughed. The old book waited at the center of the table, quiet as a coiled lesson. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, the night listened. The palace had gone quiet. The kind of quiet that lets you hear water thinking. In the back courtyard, a small fountain whispered, and palm fronds clicked softly in the warm night. King Solomon and Dr. Rich sat facing the dark line of the pyramids, voices low, hands still. From her open window above, Falcon lay on her stomach, chin on her crossed arms, listening to the murmurs. Most of it was wind and water, just shapes of sentences slipping away, until a few words rose clean and distinct, like coins at the bottom of a pool. Codex, Christ, Melanin. Then the voices drowned again in the fountain's hush. Falcon held her breath, waited for more, caught only half phrases in the soft scrape of chairs. She wrote the 3 words on a scrap of paper, folded it twice, and slid it under her pillow. Morning came, golden gentle. After the family's 6 a.m. prayer, heels, toes, squats, push-ups, jacks, they washed up, dressed and filed out. In the corridor toward breakfast, Falcon nudged Osiris. "I heard them last night," she said. Voice small but steady. "Dad and the king. I couldn't make it out, but I'm sure about 3 words." Christopher slowed. Ma turned an ear. Kalinda, Amor, Chanel, and Nadessa bunched closer. Falcon unfolded the paper and showed them. Codex, Christ, Melanin. Christopher's face didn't change, but his eyes did. "You sure?" Falcon nodded, as sure as the fountain was talking. Mar glanced toward the courtyard doors. Then they're not just talking about classes. Osiris tucked the list into his pocket like a match you don't strike yet. "We don't push," he said. "We just watch." Kalinda exhaled. Quiet eyes. Amor whispered the words under her breath, tasting them like new colors. Chanel squeezed Nadessa's hand. Nadessa squeezed back twice. By the time the convoy rolled toward the school, the children's chatter had returned. Homework, poems, practice drills. But a thin wire ran through it now, pulled just tight enough to hum. At the gate, the guards waved them in. The campus wakened in sunlight. They scattered to their halls, high school, middle, 5th grade, each carrying the same folded triangle of meaning. Codex, Christ, Melanin. They didn't know the whole sentence yet, but they knew it was theirs. The bell chimed for 3rd period, and sunlight crawled across the floor. On the board, Dr. Rich wrote in big letters, "Nuclear DNA, the library of your nucleus." "Today," he said, "we're going inside each cell's nucleus, the tiny room that holds your nuclear DNA. Think of it as a library of instructions for building and caring for you." He drew a circle for a cell, a smaller circle for the nucleus, then long ribbons inside. Your nuclear DNA is packed in the chromosomes, like 46 book volumes. In most of your cells, 23 pairs. Each volume has many genes, and genes are recipes. The recipes are written with 4 letters, ACGT. Amor raised her hand. "Where do the letters come from?" "From your parents," Rich smiled. "You get 1 set of volumes from one parent and 1 set from the other. Together, they make your library." Nadessa asked, "Is all DNA the same?" "2 kinds to remember," he said, holding up 2 fingers. "Nuclear DNA lives in the nucleus, the big library with almost all the recipes. Mitochondria DNA lives in your mitochondria, tiny power stations, a small special booklet. Today, we're reading the big library." How the library works. Storage. Nuclear DNA winds around little spools called histones, like thread on a spool, so miles of ribbon fit in tiny room. Reading. When a cell needs a recipe, it copies a line called a message from nuclear DNA. That message goes out to the cell's kitchen, called ribosomes, to cook up a protein. Copying the library. Before a cell divides, it duplicates every volume, so each new cell gets a full set. Chanel squinted. "Who decide which recipe to read?" "Your signals," Rich said. "Food, water, sleep, movement, light, calm breathing. They act like bookmarks. Good bookmarks help the right pages open." Mini motion. Stand up. 3 moves, 3 ideas. 1. Shelve it. Storage. Wrap your arms around yourself like winding thread. Number 2. Read it. The message. Open your hands like a book and pretend to copy a line. 3. Build it. A protein. Mime stirring a pot. Then flex. The cell made something. They did the sequence twice, giggling on the flex. Quick connections. From one to many. You began as one cell with the full nuclear DNA library. As you multiplied, every new cell got its own copy. Physics and quantum. Big picture. Physics. A cell reads a recipe and builds. Tiny picture. Quantum. Energy moves in the letters and parts so the recipe can be read correctly. Pigment and light. Yesterday we learned pigment turns light into information. Some of those signals help choose which pages the cell opens. Chalkboard summary. Nuclear DNA in the nucleus. Packed into 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. Genes equal recipes written in ACGT. Cells store, read, and build from these recipes. Proteins. Signals. Water, sleep, movement, light, calm. Act like bookmarks. You started as one cell. Each new cell received a full library. Rich capped the marker. Sentence of the day. Say it with me. Nuclear DNA is my cell's library. Good signals are my bookmarks. Proteins are what the recipes make. The bell rang. Chanel whispered, "Keep the library neat." Amore nodded, tapping her water bottle. "And keep the bookmarks kind." Nadessa grinned. "So the librarian is me." The lunch hall buzzed like always. Trays clicking, voices bouncing off stone, and the Abs and Real table filled up fast. The food was on point. Lentil pilaf, roasted carrots with coriander, warm flatbread, little cups of pomegranate. No one thought twice except Chanel. She paused mid-bite, eyes narrowing just a touch. "The cooks are new," she whispered to Amore and Nadessa. "Different aprons, and they use coriander instead of cumin on the carrots." She glanced at the serving line, new faces, same routines, then shrugged. "Still yummy." A notice blinked on the hall display. Basketball tryouts, freshman team. The boys lit up. Christopher and Mar traded quick grins. Osiris straightened in his seat, already picturing layups and footwork drills. Across the room, Seth raised his voice just enough to carry. "Hey Osiris, you excited for nothing, huh? Brains won't get you on the freshman team, only muscle will." A ripple of laughter moved through nearby tables. Osiris's jaw tightened. He stared at his tray, then at the tryouts notice. Heat crawling up his neck. Falcon touched his elbow once. Easy. River, not stone. And he drew a breath through his nose slow. He looked up ready to answer. Ring! The bell cut the room in half. Chairs scraped, trays stacked. The tide of students surged towards the doors. Seth smirked over his shoulder and disappeared into the stream. Osiris stood last, eyes on the notice a second longer, then turned for class without a word. Just a promise he kept to himself. Last period ended like a drum roll for Osiris. In the doorway stood a girl with long curly hair and shy fire in her eyes. "I'm all set," she said, tucking a strand behind her ear. "I love basketball, and smart players are my favorite." She could have engraved her name on his heart with a diamond. Osiris blinked. "Oh, yeah, me too. Basketball and smart." Orset smiled. "Also, tell your dad thank you. What he's doing for my little brother Rashad, it means a lot." She gave a small wave and slipped into the hall. Osiris floated to his locker. He floated to the car. He floated all the way to the palace. Falcon had seen the whole exchange. By the time they hit the courtyard, she was sing-songing, "Osiris has a girlfriend. Osiris has a girlfriend." Like a headline. It went viral in the house instantly. Amor and Chanel chanting it as a duet. Nadessa adding harmonies. Mar and Christopher high-fiving every time Osiris blushed and said, "Bro, chill." Even Ocean seemed to smirk. At dinner, the teasing continued. Good, healthy fun over bowls of lentils and warm flatbread. "Do we set up a practice hoop for someone?" Mar asked. "Only if it comes with a dictionary," Falcon shot back. "Smart players, remember?" Osiris covered his face, laughing despite himself. "Y'all are impossible." Rich raised his cup, grinned easy, to respectful crushes and focused practices. King Solomon added, "Deadpan but twinkling." And to the defense, learning to read passing lanes. They clinked water cups. Later at 9 p.m., the family closed the day with prayer, heels, toes, squats, push-ups, jacks. Thanks, rising into the warm night. When Osiris laid down, the last thing he saw was a notebook page that read, "Tryouts plus OS." He erased the last two letters fast. And the last thing he felt was a steady drum in his chest that sounded a lot like game day. Morning hit different. The campus that usually sang with chatter felt hollow, echoing with chants from beyond the gates. Half the desks were empty. Outside the fence, parents held hand-painted signs and shouted under a haze of dust and heat. "Great Council, replace the king. Tell the truth. Our children first." Replace the king? In Kemet, that was blasphemy. A thunderclap no one had ever heard shouted in daylight. Before first period, Mar, Christopher, and Osiris cut through the courtyard and found Tahuti hunched by the bulletin board, eyes lit like he hadn't slept. He didn't waste words. Someone leaked online that the king knew everything about the kidnapping and kept it secret for money. Christopher's jaws flexed. "That's a lie." Mar's face went still. Coordinated smear. Osiris glanced at the gates, at the signs, and said, "It's working." Tahuti nodded. It's spreading fast. They didn't need a meeting to decide. Christopher said it first anyway. We go to the palace now. We leave the girls in class, less heat on us, less risk on them. Ma agreed. In and out quiet. Osiris sent one short look across the yard. Falcon and Kalinda had just walked in with Nadessa, Amor, and Chanel, unaware of the gathering storm. He breathed once. Steady. Let's move. Slip out. Security had doubled at the front, so they cut along the maintenance corridor that hugged the gym's rebuilt wall. A service door clicked to a loading alley where food vendors came and went. The air smelled of sesame and diesel. A tuk-tuk rattled past. Driver glancing back. Christopher raised a hand. Palace quarter? The driver squinted, then waved them in. 60 pounds. Christopher slid into the back with Ma and Tahuti. Osiris hopped up beside the driver to point turns. At the end of the ride, Chris handed over 100 Egyptian pound note. Pale purple. The driver counted back 40 Egyptian pounds. 220 Egyptian pound bills into his palm and replied, Shukran. Thank you, Chris said, tucking the change. They slipped off on a side street and took the last 2 blocks on foot. Heads down, caps low. Palace perimeter. The palace gates were tighter than usual. More guards, more radios. The boys knew the staff entrance by the gardens. A junior guard recognized Ma and lifted the latch with a warning in his eyes. Straight to family quarters, no wandering. They nodded, cut through the shade of date palms, and slid into the guest wing they now called home. Doors closed. The noise of the protest thinned to a distant thrum. In the quiet, the 4 of them stood in a tight circle, the decision already forming. Whoever leaked it, Tahuti said, timed it to rupture the school and the palace at the same time. Divide the house, Ma muttered. Osiris set his palms on the table. We prove it's a lie and find who lit the match. Christopher's gaze moved from face to face. We start here, family first, then we follow the current. Outside, the chants rose and fell like a rough sea against stone. Inside, 4 boys drew breath as one, eyes open, listening for the next move. They slipped into the boys' room and shut the door against the palace noise. In one practice sweep, Christopher dragged the trunks from under the beds and unzipped the go bags. No labels, no brands, just matte black fabric that swallowed light. Inside, undisclosed gear, compact and calm. Christopher checked each bag by feel rather than sight, nodding once when everything answered his hands. Osiris slid the slim digital communicator into an inner sleeve, Arc, the nickname for architect, its edge giving a single pulse, then going still. Quiet in, quiet out, Mar said. They moved through the servant corridor, past the laundry's warm breath, and out a garden gate where the stone wall was lowest. A sprint across date palm shade, a hop to the outer lane, and they were in the city, caps down, steps easy. Arc vibrated twice in Osiris's pocket. He cupped it, whispering, "Route." A faint line painted itself across the small screen. Back alleys, then tram spur, then service road. Checkpoint shimmered red, detours green. They cut left through a spice market, right along a shuttered workshop, then hopped the rattling tram 2 stops outbound. Faces turned to the window like ordinary boys playing hooky. By the time they transferred to the service road, the city thinned into scrub and sand. The wind tasted like hot metal. Mar pointed to the horizon. There. Half-buried columns broke the flat like teeth. The abandoned temple Rahotep's team had raided to pull Malik out. New boards patched an entry. New tire tracks scalloped the slope. They dropped to a crouch behind a low ridge. Christopher swept the sight with a tiny, lensless monocle. Osiris pressed Ark to his palm. Ark passive scan only, he whispered. No pings. A quiet feed unspooled. Heat ghosts in the shade. Faint electromagnetic chatter like tire bees. And a floor plan stitched from an old survey file and last raid telemetry. 4 chambers, 2 stairwells. The northern stairwell showed disturbed sand, freshly disturbed sand. Someone's been back, Tahuti said, voice low. They slid along the ridge in single file, boots kissing the stone, then dropped into the lee of a broken wall where the air was cooler. The doorway ahead had been pried and resealed. A strip of cloth caught on a nail fluttered like a whisper. Mar froze, eyes on the threshold. Trip line, he mouthed. Christopher shook his head. Old fiber, no tension. Still, he eased a flat palm across the gap before stepping in. Respect, not fear. Inside, the temple smelled of dust and old fires. Light fell in blades through cracks in the roof. The chamber where Malik had been kept was empty, swept too clean. On the far wall, a new mark had been scratched into the plaster. A crescent double with a thin bar. The same sigil from Mar's book. Not random, Tahuti breathed. Osiris knelt and brushed a fingertip across the floor. Fine black grit clung to his skin. Carbonized sand. Hot work recently. Maybe a burner. Maybe a brand. Arc flickered. Caution. Intermittent radio frequency bursts. Sub-audible listen mode only. The boys went still. Somewhere below, a soft kept impossible time, then stopped as if it had noticed them. Christopher's glance was a question. Mar answered with a nod toward the northern stairs. Down, he whispered, slow. They moved like ink. One, then one, then one. Breath shallow, feet testing each step. At the turn of the stair, Arc pulsed once more and printed a single word on the tiny screen. Co. The signal got fuzzy, sand in a circuit, then cleared. Codex. Osiris looked up. Christopher's jaw tightened. Mar's eye sharpened to points. Someone had come back to the temple and left a whisper with teeth. Mark it, log it, out. Chris said softly, we bring this to the family first. They retrace their steps, palm the door closed, and let the desert swallow their footprints as they curved away from the obvious trail. Cityward, the tram rails winked in the heat. Behind them, the temple kept its new silence, holding whatever had woken there for someone bolder or more foolish than four boys with smart bags and better instincts. They didn't sneak this time. Christopher squared his shoulders at the palace gate. Front door, he said. Ask for the table. Anything else and our parents will kill us. They pushed through the big doors into the cool hall and stopped. The table was already made. The king, queen, Dr. Rich, Captain Rahotep, and Baba Malik, bandage peeking from his collar but sitting straight, waiting in a ring of quiet faces. The girls were there too. Falcon, Kalinda, Nadessa, Amor, Chanel. Ocean lay under Rich's chair, ears up. For a breath, no one moved. Christopher stepped forward, hands open. We need everyone to hear this at once. He glanced at Ma, Osiris, Tahuti. We went out. We're sorry. We didn't ask. We thought time mattered. Rahotep's jaw worked, then relaxed. The queen's hand rested over her heart. The king's eyes were flint and fire. Sit, Solomon said. They sat. Chris kept it clean. There's a smear online saying you sold the truth for money. We know that's a lie. We went to the temple where Baba Malik was held. We found signs that someone's been back. A mark on the wall, the double crescent with a bar. Same as the bookmark found. Fresh tracks. A faint radio frequency ticking from below. Our communicator stayed passive and caught one word in the noise. Codex. He slid a small slate to the center. No labels, just a dim map, timestamps, and 3 still images. The disturbed stare, the scratched sigil, a heat ghost under stone. That's all we took. No contact. We came straight home. Silence held. Then Falcon reached into her pocket and set her scrap beside the slate. Codex, Christ, Melanin. I heard Dad and the King say those last night, she said softly by the fountain. Rich exhaled through his nose, a tiny, tired, almost laugh. Front door was the right call. The queen's voice was gentle but iron. You do not leave this house like smoke again. Yes, ma'am, Mars said, and the others echoed. Rahotep leaned in, studying the sigil photo. Same sign we flagged in 3 old case files and on the back page of that library book. He cut a look at Tahuti. You 4 walked too close to the fire, but you brought back heat we needed. A beat. I still owe you one. Consider this partial payment. I'll put a quiet team on the temple tonight. You will not be on it. Baba Malik tapped the table near the image of the stair. They like gates and timing. Redirection outside, ritual inside. He met the boy's eyes, then the girls. If you train under light. No alley matches. King Solomon finally spoke. The room cooled around his voice. There are whispers around the codex. Much of it is story. Some of it is map. Enough of it is danger. He looked to Rich. They're inside this now, whether we pretend or not. Rich nodded. Then we draw a line. No more solo missions. You want answers? You bring the question to the table. We assign tasks. Research belongs to all of you. Field belongs to none of you without an adult. Osiris swallowed. Understood. Chanel lifted a hand, small but steady. We noticed the new cooks at lunch yesterday, she said. Aprons were different, spices too. Rahotep's head turned. Good eyes. He scribbled a note. I'll vet the kitchen staff and vendors. Mar reached into his bag and set the old book down. Cracked leather, crescent on the cover. The symbols in here, he said, opened into a margin sketch that matched the wall. A penciled header bled across the top. Gates and lures. The king's gaze hardened a degree. Close that page, he said quietly. We'll read it together slowly. He stood. Everyone else followed. Here is the path, Solomon said, counting off with his fingers. 1. Rahotep secures the temple and the kitchens. 2. Rich and I will mark safe pages from the book. The rest sleeps. 3. Malik returns to class and training is discipline, not spectacle. 4. Children, if you see, you say, at the table. He looked around the circle, each pair of eyes, each held breath, then softened. You chose the front door. That is how a house stays a house. Relief loosened the room. The girls started talking at once. Ocean thumped the floor. Rahotep scooped the slate, already dialing orders. Malik stood, and a dozen kids stood straighter with him. Rich squeezed Christopher's shoulder on his way past. The queen kissed Falcon's hair as she folded the scrap back into her hand. On the table, the old book and the new map sat side by side, past and present, touching at the edges, waiting to be read together. Outside, the protest had thinned to a low hum. Inside, the family, by blood and by oath, reset its chairs and its rules. Dinner would come, prayer would come, and when the night rose, they would meet again at the table. Doors open, eyes open, front way in. Chanel caught Falcon between the library and the courtyard, where the light made dust look like gold. She stood on her toes to reach Falcon's ear. Big sis, the symbol from the book in the temple, I saw it at school. Falcon blinked. Where? In the lunchroom, on one of the new chefs. A tattoo, double crescent with a thin bar, right here. Chanel tapped the side of her neck. I asked for a second slice of cake. When he bent to get a new tray from the fridge, his collar slipped. I saw it. Falcon's face hardened, from soft to steel in one heartbeat. Good eyes, she whispered. Don't tell anyone else yet. Then she pulled her phone, not to text, but to rally in person. The children's huddle. They met in the study off the guest wing. Christopher, Mar, Osiris, Falcon, Kalinda, Nadessa, Amor, Chanel, and Tahuti, who always arrived with a notebook already open. Chanel repeated it cleanly, no drama. The symbol, the chef, the moment at the fridge. She even sketched the angle of the collar on a sticky note. Christopher didn't pace. He just nodded once. Front door rule. We tell the adults at dinner that the staff may be compromised. Before that, Tahuti said, already typing, let me chase the mark. He and Osiris slid to the desk. Twin screens blooming with quiet searches, public registries, trademark databases, vendor directories. Falcon stood lookout at the door while the young three made guard duty into a whisper game. Got a hit, Tahuti said, eyes sharpening. He spun the screen. The double crescent with a bar sat crisp in a logo file. Pharmacia. Who are they? Mar asked. Osiris scrolled. A mega conglomerate. Medical and wellness supply lines. Front page brags. Heart medication portfolios and nutritional services. He tapped a corporate map. Shells inside shells. Distribution arms, catering subsidiaries. Tahuti pointed at a tiny line in the legal copy. Subsidiary, Pharmacia Nutrition Services, contracts for institutional kitchens, schools, hospitals. Silence tightened. Chanel hugged herself without meaning to. Christopher closed his laptop. Enough to raise the flag. We bring exactly this to the table. No guesses, no extra color. Just what we saw and what we can prove. Falcon nodded. Front door. They broke, washed their faces, and walked to dinner like any other night. Like school was just school and kitchens was just kitchens. Around the table. The seated table glowed under warm lights. Bowls of rice and roasted vegetables steamed. Ocean thumped once, then went still. The king, the queen, Dr. Rich, Rahotep, Baba Malik were already seated when the children filed in. Christopher didn't sit all the way before speaking. We have news. Request to share it at the table. Solomon's eyes flicked to Rahotep, then back. Proceed. Chanel stepped forward, small, brave. The symbol, the double crescent with a bar. I saw it on a chef's neck at school today, under his collar. I was right next to him. Falcon followed. We called a meeting. We stuck to the rule. Front door. Osiris and Tahuti set a tablet between the platters. Screen already zoomed to the logo file. We found the symbol registered to a company. Pharmacia, Osiris said. They're enormous. $1 trillion market cap on paper. They make heart medications and run nutrition services. One of their subsidiaries sells institutional kitchen contracts. Tahuti added, we didn't cross any lines. Public registries, visible pages only. But the match is clean. He tapped the screen. The logo and the symbol for Mars book sat side by side like mirror and memory. Rahotep had his pen out before the words finished. Names, screenshots, timestamps. Already packaged, Tahuti said, sliding over a drive. The queen reached for Chanel's hand. You were careful, right? Yes, Mother, Chanel whispered. Baba Malik studied the logo as if it might move. They'd hide in plain sight, in kitchens, in contracts, in routine. Rich's voice was low, even. And their public face is hearts and food. Solomon's gaze moved around the circle, landing last on Christopher. You brought this properly. Thank you, he returned to Rahotep. Quietly replace the school kitchen staff tonight. No alarms, Verify identities, contracts, and supply routes. If Pharmakia's hands are in our house, we cut them out lawfully. Rahotep inclined his head. Yes, my king. Rich tapped the table near the tablet. We don't jump to medical conclusions, he said, eyes on the children. Logos are smoke. We follow fire with care. But you did the right thing. Christopher exhaled. We'll stay on our side of the line. The king lifted his cup to clear eyes and front doors. Cups clinked softly. Conversation returned in strands. The food tasted like food again, but under the table, Ocean kept her head on her paws, eyes open, watching the door where servants came and went, where a collar could slip and a symbol could hide in the seam between normal and normal-ish. The palace split into two currents after dinner. The study, adults. King Solomon, the Queen, Rahotep, Baba Malik, and Dr. Rich sat in the lamplight over an open map of the city and a stack of printed screenshots. The protests had thinned, but the noise still pulsed in the distance. Rahotep tapped the Pharmakia logo. Institutional kitchens, hospital contracts, and a PR arm that could drown us in 30 minutes. Whoever leaked that bribe lie, they knew exactly when to light the match. The Queen's voice was even. Parents are scared. We must say something by morning. Rich folded his hands. Pharmakia doesn't want kids learning Christ science. Not as a full curriculum. Not at scale. If children can read their own waves, breathe their own charge, and understand pigment and light, that's fewer mystery hearts to medicate. They'll fight the idea, not just the school. Solomon's jaw set. We tell the truth without revealing our throat. But what truth? We cannot say $1 trillion firm is sabotaging our classrooms without proof we could publish. Malik leaned in. Show parents what we teach. A transparent lesson. The more you hide, the more they believe the leak. Rahotep nodded once. And we must admit something about the kidnapping. Enough to steady the ground. Mars' bedroom, kids. Knees on the rug, backs against the bed, they crowded around a sketch pad. Christopher, Mar, Osiris, Falcon, Kalinda, Tahuti, with the 5th grade trio, Amor, Chanel, Nadessa, wide-eyed but steady. Chris tapped the page. Pharmakia's logo at school kitchens. Pharmakia sells heart meds. And Dad keeps saying, Christ, that's the heart's wave. They're trying to stop the curriculum from getting born. Tahuti scribbled arrows. We push back where they can't choke it. Public. Anonymous packet to local news about the symbol, the vendor contract, the timing. Kalinda frowned. If we go loud, we risk the front door rule. Falcon nodded. We don't send anything without the table's blessing, but we plan it so the grown-ups have a ready tool. Chanel hugged her knees. Parents need to see what we see. A knock. A butler's voice through the wood. The king requests the children in the study. They traded looks, then stood as one. The study. They filed in. Ocean lifted her head. The adults paused their low voices. Rich's eyes went to Osiris. Quick question, he said lightly. Do you have any digital communicators with you for ARC? Osiris froze. Silence. Rich arched an eyebrow. I told you to leave that stuff at home, he exhaled, half a laugh. I also know you didn't. The girls tried, failed not to smile. Falcon snorted, Kalinda covered her mouth, even Chanel's eyes sparkled. Rich turned deadpan. Why are the girls laughing? Before anyone could answer, Rich's children vanished like a drill they practiced 100 times. Out the door, down the hall, and came back 30 seconds later. Arms loaded with duffel bags. Christopher set 2 on the table. Falcon thumped one by a chair. Osiris shouldered off another. Amore and Chanel dragged a smaller pair across the rug. Zippers whispered. Matte black, sleek edges. Weapons, undisclosed. Digital communicators, arc link, pulsing faintly like quiet stars. Rich blinked, then broke into a slow grin. Oh. Y'all was ready, huh? The bell sang for third period, and the room settled into sunlight. On the board, Dr. Rich wrote in big, steady letters, Masterclass, the Christ Wave, your heart's song. Ocean curled near the door. Chanel, Amore, and Odessa slid to the front row. Rashad came in a beat later, shirt looser at the shoulders, eyes bright. Rich smile flickered like fire. The boy looked 5 to 10 pounds lighter. He was proud, but more importantly, he stood taller, confident. Rich gave him a small nod. Rashad nodded back. Number 1, what is the Christ? Rich drew a simple heartbeat line, 4 tall letters under it. QRST. Q equals quiet, ready. The spark gets the ventricles ready. R equals rise, the big squeeze that pushes blood. S equals settle, the squeeze finishes. T equals tune, the heart resets and recharges. Think of it like a 4-step dance your heart does all day, he said. Energy, action, finish, reset. Energy, action, finish, reset. He tapped the board. Pigment turns light into information. The heart turns that information into motion. A wave you can feel at your wrist. Number 2, feel the wave. Stand up, 4 moves, soft and smooth. Q, quiet, ready. Hands at chest, inhale through the nose. R, rise. Gentle press forward with palms like sending blood. S, settle. Lower hands and exhale slow. T, tune. Hands to belly. Feel the calm reset. They flowed through it twice. Giggles at first, then a hush. The rhythm landed. 3, models we use. Physics view, big world. The heart is a pump that squeezes in R and finishes in S. Tiny view, energy, quantum. Charged cells pass a tiny spark so the wave travels, then reset in T so the next beat is clean. Big rules and tiny rules are friends, Rich said. They keep the rhythm honest. Number 4, where the wave travels. He sketched a simple map. Right atrium, right ventricle, lungs, left atrium, left ventricle, body. Your QRST keeps the ferry boats of light moving through this river. R is the push, T is the promise that another clean push is coming. 5, habits that help Christ. Rich wrote 3 check boxes. Water each hour smooths the wave. Pigment plate. Greens, purples, reds equals better signals. Short movement breaks. Heel toe raises, squats, push-ups, jumping jacks. Current in motion. He glanced at Rashad. I see a teammate keeping promises. Rashad's grin snuck out. A couple classmates tapped his fist. Number 6, mini lab. Count your calm. Pairs place 2 fingers lightly on the wrist. Count heartbeats for 15 seconds. Do 1 Christ breath cycle. Q is inhale, R is press, S is exhale, T is rest. Count again. Did your number stay steady or drift a little toward calm? They jotted results. Amor whispered. Mine softened. Nadessa nodded. Mine too. Chanel drew a tiny wave next to her numbers. Chalkboard summary. Q equals quiet and ready. Spark gets set. R, rise, the push. S, settle, finish the squeeze. T, tune, reset for the next beat. Physics and quantum work together to carry the wave. Water, pigment foods, and short movements help keep the wave clean. Sentence of the day. Repeat. My heart sings Christ. Get ready, push, finish, reset. Again and again all day. The bell rang. Rashad capped his bottle and whispered, water every hour. Teamwork, Rich said, tapping his temple. Inside and out. Ocean thumped her tail once. Class dismissed. Lunch felt ordinary on purpose. The Abs kids and the Real kids ate, joked, traded mango slices, eyes soft, voices easy, each of them repeating in their heads the same quiet line. The plan is working. All day the campus thrummed with one rhythm. Dr. Rich Abs moved from room to room, elementary to middle to high school, breaking down the Christ complex like a song everyone could learn. Get ready, push, finish, reset. Baba Malik echoed it in PE, tying breath to movement, stances to timing, redirection to the reset. In halls and courtyards, 5th graders traced waves with pencils, 7th graders argued about ion channels, 10th graders compared pulse counts after calm breathing. From different levels, the same melody, Christ, rose and braided through the school. By last bell, the air felt lighter. Teachers smiled without forcing it. Kids slapped high fives and compared notes. Flawless, the children told themselves. Keep it boring, keep it bright. Then the 11th graders shouldered their bags and headed for the gym. Christopher and Mar walked at the front of the pack, sneakers whispering over tile after sun slicing the corridor into golden shadow. That's when they saw them. Two new custodians at the far end. Gray carts parked, mops upright like spears. Different cut of uniform, different gait. One of them glanced up too quickly, then backed down to a coil of extension cord. No one broke stride, no one stared. Christopher's eyes slid past like water over stone. Mars' jaw didn't move at all. They said nothing. The hallway swallowed the moment. A whistle chirped from inside the gym. Short, certain. Doors swung open. Rubber met wood. The wave moved on. The gym smelled like resin and effort. Sunlight cut the floor into bright stripes while the 11th graders formed lines. Baba Malik paced barefoot across the mats, posture easy, eyes alive. "Listen up," he said, voice carrying without strain. Martial arts isn't just fighting. It's health and longevity. If you can throw hard kicks, sharp punches, deep lunges for years without breaking down, that's not aggression, that's energy management. He snapped a front kick, whop, then flowed into a lunge and a tight hook, stopping inches from a pad. What do these have in common with health? Energy. And where is the center of human energy? He tapped his chest lightly. The Christ complex, your heart's wave. The stronger and cleaner that electric wave, the stronger the magnetism of your body. Strong wave, better recovery. Strong wave, clearer timing. Strong wave, smarter decisions under pressure. He moved down the line, adjusting stances with two-finger nudges. A powerful QRST doesn't just make a tougher fighter, it makes a sharper thinker. Some of you will even notice something else. When your signal is calm and coherent, your attention links with others more easily. Call it intuition. Some call it telepathy's edge. A few kids traded looks. Malik grinned. Ever think of someone and ding, they call or text? You say coincidence. I say your signals were already in tune. Hands rose. Whispers bloom. Pring. Groans all around. Ah, coach. Malik laughed, bowing them out. No worries, we'll build this all year. Hydrate, breathe, walk easy. Tomorrow we connect footwork to RST. Have a great day. They filed out buzzing. Arguments, theories, jokes, minds lit up. In the corridors, the hum grew louder. QRST on everybody's lips. Christ. Even teachers who hadn't been looped into the plan were leaning over coffee, sketching little heartbeat waves on napkins and asking each other, okay, but what is the T phase exactly? By dismissal, the whole campus felt like a tuning fork after a strike, vibrating with one shared note, carrying through classrooms, staff rooms, and out past the gates into the evening air. The extended Rolls Royce hummed like a quiet room on wheels. Backseat chatter layered over the soft thud of basketballs and backpacks. QRST jokes still bounced around from PE. The driver, Musa, eased through late afternoon traffic toward the palace. 2 blocks from the usual turn, blue lights flashed. Police in reflective vests wave traffic away from the main boulevard. "Detour, sir," one called, face shaded by a brim. Musa nodded, turned down the unfamiliar road. The world exploded into a bang, 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 bang. 4 sharp pops. The truck dipped hard left. Tires shredded, rims screaming. Musa fought the wheel, kept the rolls from flipping, slid it easy into a sandy embankment. Before the dust settled, doors yanked open, gloved hands, tape across mouths, fabric hoods down over heads, arms pulled, feet stumbled. The air smelled like rubber and salt. A sliding door, a big white van, body shoved in, door slammed, engine growled. Palace Situation Room. The fountain in the courtyard kept whispering, but inside the study, everything was screens and breath. King Solomon, the Queen, Rich, Rahotep, and Malik leaned into a wall of live feeds. Above them, a drone cut an arc over the city, its camera locked onto the white van. On the main display, a clean overlay stacked itself. Street grid traffic cams, a pulsing blue for the van, 8 green sparks for the children's phones, silent, zipped in backpacks, plus Musa's locator. In the corner of the map, a small silver icon post. Arc online. Rich's jaw flexed. "We're with them." Rahotep barked to comms. "Teams Bravo and Delta, roll soft, unmarked only, no sirens." Malik's eyes tracked the route. They've planned this. They'll swap vehicles, kill cameras. "Let them try," Solomon said, calm but iron. "Arc." The speakers answered in a neutral tone. "Target telematics, probing, cell mesh, attached, municipal grid, limited access." A new feed bloomed. Inside the van, a thermal smear of shapes, kids breathing calm and tight, 2 armed silhouettes in front, 1 shadow crouched by the door. Inside the van. Under the black hoods, the world was a heartbeat and a hum. Falcon pressed her shoulder to Kalinda's. Nadessa's fingers found Amor's palm. 2 squeezes. Their secret, "I'm okay." Christopher's wrist brushed Mars. Steady pressure. 3 beats. The QRST breath count. Osiris felt his phone vibrate once, then twice. Then once again through the backpack against his ribs. Arc's code for "we see you." He exhaled slow. QRST. The van took a hard right, a left. The floor rattled. The kidnappers murmured into radios, thinking they were smoke. The net tightens. Rahotep's cursor dropped markers on the map. They're angling for the ring road. Cutoffs here. Here. Drone 2 is airborne. Arc threaded new lines across the city. Hijacked traffic cams flipped green. A municipal maintenance gate clicked open 2 streets ahead of the van, then closed behind it. A drawbridge light went red at the exact second the van might have used it. The driver cursed and swerved. Arc. Van telematics. Back door found. Throttle. Authentic challenge. Passed. Brake assist. Armed. Door latch. Armed. Rich didn't look away from the screen. Do not stop them on a crowded street. Rahotep nodded. Heard them. The drones dipped lower, throwing long shadows that spooked the driver into the route Ark wanted. Ahead, an industrial lane yawned between empty warehouses, a cul-de-sac with only one exit. The one Rahotep's unmarked trucks, now quietly blocked. Bring them in, Solomon said. The trap. The white van barreled into the lane and saw the mistake too late. The driver slammed the brake. The pedal felt mushy, not his anymore. Power steering tugged left, not his anymore. The van rolled to a perfect stop on a painted X no one inside could see. In the darkness of the cabin, the kids felt the deceleration like a long sigh. Falcon counted. QRST. Outside, 4 unmarked trucks ghosted into place right in front, right on the back, left, right. No sirens, no light show. Overhead, the drone hovered, a silent star. Arc, door latch, release in 3, 2, 1. The van's rear locks thumped. The door slid an inch, then 2. The crouched kidnapper spun, swore, grabbed for it. The handle wouldn't answer him. From the front, the driver twisted the key. Dead. Radios crackled. Static. A low mechanical woof and a net fired from beneath the nearest truck, snapping over the van's hood like a steel spiderweb, pinning the front doors. Another net kissed the rear bumper. Go, Rahotep said. His team moved. Fast, calm, clean. No shouting, no theater. Back door roll. Gloved hands reached in, not yanking, lifting. One by one, the children came out. Hoods peeled back to evening light. Tape eased free. Musa blinked hard tears. Sir, he started, then swallowed it. Osiris sucked one long inhale, blinked to clear the blur, and found Rich's face on a screen propped in a truck window. Live. Rich lifted 2 fingers. You okay? Osiris nodded. In the front cab, the 2 kidnappers looked at each other and finally understood. Their van had driven itself into a box. Their radios were ghosts. Their doors were glued to the air. They hadn't kidnapped the children. They'd been walked into a kidnapping of themselves. Rahotep stepped to the cab window and held up a badge to the glass, his expression almost sympathetic. It's over. The driver tried the lock again. It clicked once as if laughing. Back at the palace. The study exhaled as the feeds showed green across the board. Ocean, who had pressed herself to Rich's shin the whole time, finally lay down. Solomon folded his hands. Bring them home, quietly. No announcements. He looked to Rich. Tomorrow, we show the parents what we teach. We show them their children's waves. Rich nodded, eyes still on the screen where the kids were shaking out their hands, where Falcon hugged Chanel, where Mar and Christopher shared a look that said front door without words. On the wall, Ark's icon dimmed to a small, steady glow. Present, patient. Out in the lane, the drone rose. The trucks rolled, and the white van sat exactly where it had been told to stop. Wrapped in nets it had never seen. Its kidnappers staring at the odd new fact of their own capture. Morning came like any other. Uniforms, notebooks, a quick laugh on the steps, and the children went to school as normal. No bulletin, no sirens, no story about tires or a white van. Somewhere beneath the palace, the would-be kidnappers sat in a stone-bright cell. staring at the odd new fact of their own capture. On campus, the only loud thing was the hum of lessons. Christ on blackboards, in poems, in footwork counts. Normal. Well, normal-ish. After school, the family gathered at the long-seated table. The king, queen, Dr. Rich, Baba Malik, Captain Rahotep, Tahuti and every child, Abs and Rayal, shoulder to shoulder. Ocean took her usual post under the table. Ark's small icon glowed on a tablet like a ready star. Solomon spoke first. History is a circle. When danger comes for knowledge, families answer with oath. His gaze moved around the ring. Are we agreed? Hands touched the wood, heads nodded. Christopher and Mar clasped wrists. Falcon and Kalinda exchanged a breath that felt like steel warming. Amor, Chanel, and Nadessa sat a little taller. Osiris slid a quiet look to Tahuti. Tahuti returned it with a sharp, certain nod of a kid who knows what a line means. They drew the plan in four-seater strokes. Nothing theatrical, everything front door. Teach in the open. Lock the house. Tell the truth with receipts. Train, don't taunt. Teach in the open. Lock the house. Tell the truth with receipts. Train, don't taunt. Teach in the open. Parent nights. Public QRST lessons. Christ. Broadcast where anyone could see how a heart's wave becomes health, focus, and calm. Lock the house. Rahotep would sweep vendors, kitchens, contracts, follow paper and people until every door named who it belonged to. Tell the truth with receipts. Ark would gather what could be shown without breaking a single law. Supply maps, shell trees, timestamps, then a lawful hand would place it where the public could read. Train, don't taunt. Malik's mats would be for longevity. The book's dangerous pages would sleep. The safe pages would walk into class on clean feet. Offense, Rich said quietly, means we carry light forward. No shadows, no alleys. Pharmakia believes fear will keep our rooms dark, the queen added. They have not met our windows. They stood, and as the desert evening folded itself across the courtyard, the family moved to the open air. At 9 p.m., the prayer began. Heels and toes, squats, push-ups, jumping jacks. Thanks rising for the ferry boats of light, for clean water, for waves that reset. Above them, the pyramids held the line of the horizon. Beyond the walls, the city breathed. Inside the study, arc dimmed to a patient ember. Around the table, a house by blood and by oath agreed to step forward together. Somewhere in a tower of glass, a boardroom logo shone like a double crescent on polished steel. Pharmakia had no idea what was coming. Fade.
Rise up, get healthy, let the truth ignite. Dr. Inky always bringing dark to light. CMOS in your system make you feel so clean. Breathe, feel the inspiration, live out your dreams, please. 3 years deep, Dr. Inky in the fight. Healing souls with knowledge, bringing truth to the light. Held it down for Amber, but started small but bold. Now it's community staple, the stories unfold. Diabetes reverse, for who? Inky got it on deck, the blood pressure dropping too. That high blood tame with his famous CMOS. Empowering the people and never counting the cost. July 10th, 2022, we'll never forget. Health revolution spark, the fire's burning, yeah. From a YouTube page to a global wave. Let's go. The knowledge and the power Dr. Inky could truly save. Watch our hearts awake, breathe. Feel the movement's inspiration. Chains break, wisdom lights the way. Standing ovation. Yeah. Rise up, get healthy, let the truth ignite. Dr. Inky always bringing dark to light. Sea moss in your system make you feel so clean. Breathe, feel the inspiration, live out your dreams, please. Get healthy, let the truth ignite. Dr. Inky always bringing dark to light. Sea moss in your system make you feel so clean. Breathe, feel the inspiration, live out your dreams, please.